Chapter 345. Before the flames even touched him, Yang Tian could already feel the scorching heat. Even a hair on his body had curled up from the heat. At this moment, many of the spectating cultivators became nervous for Yang Tian, and they couldn't help but clench their fists. In the face of this flame, Yang Tian didn't even try to dodge. Instead, he slammed his palm down. His palm, formed from origin power, shot toward the flame and the T-Rex's head. In that instant, the onlookers suddenly widened their eyes in shock, as well as their nervousness. That was because Yang Tian's palm strike had actually forced back the T-Rex's flame. It looked as if the flame had been pushed back by a powerful gust of wind. This situation was far too bizarre. One had to know that in the past, there had also been people who had tried to slap away this flame with their palm strike. But in the end, not only had they failed to push the flame away, they had almost been burned by it. Only then did the cultivators surrounding the T-Rex understand that the flame this mutated beast spat out had a special attribute. Ordinary palm strikes wouldn't be able to stop this flame. But now, Yang Tian's palm strike had actually forced back the mutated beast's flame. Wasn't this just bizarre? Boom! Immediately afterward, there was a loud explosion. After forcing back the T-Rex's flame, Yang Tian's palm strike landed on the T-Rex's head. The terrifying origin power instantly broke through the Tyrannosaurus Rex's defenses and invaded its body. When Yang Tian's palm came into contact with the T-Rex's head, he pushed it lightly. Borrowing this force, he flew backward, flipped in the air, and landed firmly on the ground. Boom! At practically the same instant Yang Tian's feet touched the ground, the T-Rex's massive body collapsed to the ground. The powerful T-Rex had been killed by Yang Tian, just like that. A few cultivators with quick reactions immediately rushed over to the T-Rex's corpse and used the weapons in their hands to hack at the T-Rex's body. PFFF, 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 dense sounds of slashing rang out. The Tyrannosaurus Rex was already dead at this point. Yang Tian's origin power had struck its head and destroyed its brain tissue. Although this exotic beast was virtual, it followed the settings of reality. After his brain was destroyed, he died immediately. The bodies of mutated beasts were very strong. After reaching the star grade, they could still regenerate after being killed. However, this virtual world, or this reward event, did not have such a setting. In fact, beasts at the star grade and above were no less intelligent than humans. They also had consciousness and could cultivate like humans. The Tyrannosaurus Rex's massive body was sliced into pieces by the attacks of the cultivators. Due to the Tyrannosaurus Rex's death, its body naturally no longer had any invisible defenses, and the weapons in the hands of cultivators could easily destroy its body. These cultivators were clearly trying to take advantage of the Tyrannosaurus Rex carcasses. What if this Tyrannosaurus Rex wasn't completely dead? Yang Tian only watched with a smile on his face and remained unmoved, because he knew very well in his heart, under the attacks of the cultivators, the Tyrannosaurus Rex's body suddenly turned into a streak of red light and disappeared in a flash. When the Tyrannosaurus Rex's carcass disappeared, the invisibility support device appeared while Yang Tian was fighting appeared. It said to Yang Tian, "Congratulations, sir. You have killed a star-grade domain Lord Exotic Beast. You have received 100,000 reward points." Yang Tian did not set up a special notification mode for the support device, so the notification of the support device was naturally heard by the cultivators beside him. 100,000 reward points. If Yang Tian could kill another star-grade domain Lord Exotic Beast, he would definitely take first place. Even if Yang Tian did nothing now, when the time came, there was a very high chance that he would rank 5th or higher. Many people cast envious gazes at Yang Tian. Of course, most people didn't care. 500,000 star crystals wasn't a huge sum to them. Many people had killed exotic beasts for 500,000 star crystals. Some had done it for the sake of reputation, while others had done it to gain battle experience. Soon, the spectating cultivators dispersed in all directions and continued hunting other exotic beasts. There were many more star-grade domain Lord Exotic Beasts, but they would not be of the same species. Nobody said that Yang Tian had been lucky when he had killed the Tyrannosaurus Rex. After all, everyone had seen what had happened. That terrifying exotic beast had not suffered any serious injuries before Yang Tian had killed it. Yang Tian had killed it with his own strength. After everyone had dispersed, Yang Tian got ready to go somewhere else to continue hunting exotic beasts. This time, he was determined to get 500,000 star crystals. When Yang Tian turned around, a black figure appeared in front of him in a flash. "I'm the strongest." The person who had appeared in front of Yang Tian was the strongest, who had leapt up with a large blade and slashed at the Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was a young man with a small stature. Although this person was somewhat famous, he had blocked Yang Tian's path. Yang Tian was somewhat unhappy and couldn't help but frown. When the strongest saw Yang Tian's unhappy look, he smiled and said, "Hello, my name is Zi Qinyangyu." The strongest had actually told Yang Tian his name in the real world. "I'm the strongest. Are you from the Zichen family or the Zichen Empire?" Yang Tian asked in surprise. When he saw Yang Tian's surprised look, Zi Qinyangyu smiled and said, "Although my surname is Zichen, I'm not from the Zichen Empire." After saying that, Zi Qinyangyu continued, "I want to be friends with you. Is that okay?" "Be friends?" Yang Tian looked at Zi Qinyangyu in surprise and did not speak for a while. Zi Qinyangyu saw Yang Tian's expression and said with a smile, "If you don't want to, then forget it." Yang Tian shook his head and said, "I don't mean that. However, I have a deep hatred with the Zichen Empire. When I become stronger, I will go and find trouble with the Zichen Empire. Then, are you still willing to be friends with me?" When the Zichen Empire came to Earth and killed so many of his compatriots, Yang Tian has never forgotten about it. When he becomes strong enough, he will go to the Zichen Empire to avenge his dead compatriots. Whenever Yang Tian thinks of the Zichen Empire, the name list given to him by Li Junyang will appear in his mind. The people on the list are all teenagers. They could have lived for a long time. And there are also the children and old people who were killed by the Zichen Empire soldiers. Zi Qinyangyu smiled and said, "Being friends and being enemies are two different concepts, right? Moreover, I'm not from the Zichen Empire. If one day we are friends and have a life and death battle for our own ideals, it's not a big deal, right?" "Well said." Yang Tian nodded and said with a smile, "Zi Qinyangyu, hello. My name is Yang Tian." Yang Tian also said his name in the real world. Chapter 346. Seeing that Yang Tian agreed, Zi Qinyangyu faced Yang Tian and hammered his own chest. This was a form of etiquette. Yang Tian smiled and nodded at Zi Qinyangyu. "Although we are already friends, I will not admit defeat in such a competition. You have to work hard too." After Zi Qinyangyu finished speaking, he turned around and rushed toward the place where the ultra beasts were the densest. Yang Tian, on the other hand, chose another direction. More than 10 minutes later, a Stellar Lord level ultra beast appeared. Moreover, it was less than 100 meters away from Yang Tian. Rather than a beast, this ultra beast was more like a big bug. Its appearance looked like a cockroach on Earth. Its body was dark red. As soon as this big insect appeared, its body was surrounded by a dark red mist. When the wind blew, it emitted an unpleasant stench to the surroundings. Smelling this stench seemed to affect one's mind. Yang Tian was very close. When he smelled this stench, he felt that he was temporarily confused. This stench was poisonous. Yang Tian didn't need to deliberately control it. The force in his body dissolved this toxin that entered his body and affected his nerves. Yang Tian, who was constantly hunting low-level ultra beasts, was the first to rush up, although he wasn't the closest. Then, boom, there was a loud noise. Yang Tian leaped high into the air and landed a punch on the head of the insect, just like how he killed the T-Rex earlier. Before anyone could arrive, the giant bug's body turned into a red light and disappeared in a flash. Many people saw this scene and felt very helpless and strange. This person's combat power was too strong. If he wasn't a superclass elite in reality, then even a superclass elite wouldn't be this strong. He must have used an external program to cheat. After killing a Stellar Lord level Ultra Beast, Yang Tian received 10,000 reward points. At this time, he was ranked first in this event with more than 115,000 reward points. If you open the reward point ranking now, you would see the name Xiao Long in the first place. The second place was on the strongest, with more than 53,000 reward points. In this event ranking, Yang Tian was leading by a wide margin. Yang Tian ignored the strange gazes of others and didn't have time to pay attention to the ranking. He continued to look for the next high-level Ultra Beast. More and more high-level Ultra Beasts appeared later. This was a world of competition. Yang Tian wouldn't be polite. He directly pounced on the high-level Ultra Beasts he saw. He didn't care how long others had fought with the high-level Ultra Beasts or what price they paid. After that, the Ultra Beasts were cleanly killed by him. During this process, many people weren't convinced. Even if they were angry, they didn't dare to make a move against Yang Tian. Even if they were angry. After all, if you died in this virtual world, you would suffer for a long time in the real world. During this process, many people turned on the complaint function of their auxiliary devices and complained about Yang Tian's cheating. Ever since the Star Royal Combat virtual world was opened, there hadn't been anyone as powerful as Yang Tian. Yang Tian's strength attribute was too terrifying. The complaints were quickly reported to the headquarters of the company that operated the Star Royal Combat virtual world. After going through strict verification, all the experiencers received a reply. Even Yang Tian received a voice message. During a break in a battle, Yang Tian's auxiliary device reminded Yang Tian, "Sir, you have received a system message. Open it and take a look," Yang Tian said casually. A middle-aged man's voice sounded, "Dear experiencers who came to the Star Royal Combat virtual world, Experiencer Xiao Long received 121 complaints from other experiencers. After our investigation, we found that Xiao Long didn't use an external program. The reason why Xiao Long was so powerful was because of his strength attribute in the real world. If any experiencers feel that it's unfair, they can leave the Star Royal Combat virtual world at any time. We will refund the purchase of the Star Royal Crystal Chip and 100,000 star crystals per day. Of course, we will also take back the reward." Hearing this voice message, Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh. From now on, he would be very famous in this virtual world. This was because all the cultivators who came to this virtual world would receive such a message. The company that operated this virtual world was King Domineering. If other virtual game companies dared to speak to the players in such a tone, they would definitely lose a lot of players. However, this virtual world was the only one in the universe. Star-level powerhouses couldn't play here, and they had nowhere to go. A few minutes after this notification, the auxiliary device said to Yang Tian again, "Sir, you have received a system message. Open it and take a look," Yang Tian said again. The message was still a voice message. It was also the voice of a middle-aged man. "Sir Xiao Long, due to the uniqueness of your strength, you don't need to earn combat power points in future activities. You can participate at will. Of course, activities with less than 10 million star crystals will also be closed to you. As compensation, you don't need to pay 100,000 star crystals when you come to the virtual world in the future. The virtual world will be open to you for free. After this voice message is played, it will be completely deleted. In the future, your comments about this special treatment in the virtual world will not be recognized by the virtual world. Thank you for your cooperation, Sir Xiao Long." "What's going on?" After the middle-aged man's voice ended, Yang Tian couldn't help but be stunned. Free. He couldn't participate in activities with less than 10 million star crystals? This was really a special treatment. Ha ha! Suddenly, Yang Tian laughed loudly. "Sir, you have received 10,000 reward points. Sir, you have received 1,000 reward points. Sir, you have received 100,000 reward points." In the future, these notifications would appear in Yang Tian's ears every few minutes. After about an hour, he had accumulated more than 1 million reward points. What Yang Tian didn't know was that the Star Imperial Battle virtual world system was analyzing Yang Tian's information. In a star field far away from Ketla's star, a huge blue pyramid was suspended in space. This was the Star Imperial Battle virtual world server. In this huge blue pyramid, there was a bright and clean space in it. A middle-aged man with short hair and wearing a blue robe stood in the middle of this space. Suddenly, a ray of light shot down from above and a person appeared. The person displayed was Yang Tian. The middle-aged man quietly looked at Yang Tian's image, watching Yang Tian's naked body slowly turning in circles. Chapter 347. Just as many people had expected, this virtual combat world wasn't just a tool to earn money. It also had the function of collecting cultivation information. This middle-aged man was the creator of the Royal Star virtual combat world. His name was Royal Star. Every time a cultivator with special energy entered the virtual combat world, the AI system would collect the cultivator's information for him to study. Beside Yang Tian's image was a string of text descriptions. Star Beast Power, Mind Power, Bloodline Power, Fusion of 3 types of power. Yu Xing frowned as he read the text descriptions and muttered to himself. After a while, Yu Xing shook his head and said to the AI system, "Save Xiaolong's information." Yu Xing's words were filled with a deep sense of disappointment. Just as Yang Tian had expected, 2 of the 3 types of energy that made up the origin power were really hard to come by. Take the Dragon Ball power, for example. The little blue dragon had taken the initiative to help Yang Tian, allowing Yang Tian to establish the Dragon Ball world and obtain the Dragon Ball power. It was really difficult to obtain the loyalty of a dragon. Dragons, which are also known as star beasts, were proud creatures. It was really difficult to use power to threaten them and control them. There was also mind power. A long time ago, the cultivators of the music boundary star field, who mainly cultivated mind power, had already gone extinct in the universe. There was also the bloodline power. Speaking of which, anyone could cultivate this type of power. However, in the universe, the attributes of every race's bloodline power were different. Ordinary weak races wouldn't be able to break through to the star grade, even if they cultivated the bloodline power for millions of years. As for some human races, as long as they had enough energy, they could reach the star grade or even the superstar grade in just a few short decades. It was really difficult to fuse these 3 types of power and create the origin power. This was the reason why Yu Xing was disappointed. Although his cultivation base had already far surpassed the star grade, he could only shake his head and sigh when he saw the composition of Yang Tian's power. Given his high cultivation base, why would he still study the attributes of energy? This was because the attributes of power were sometimes more important than one's cultivation base to a cultivator in the universe. When one's cultivation level was low, it wasn't very obvious. However, when one reached a higher realm, the use of the strength attribute would become more and more important. In a battle of the same level, it wasn't strange for a powerhouse with a special attribute to kill another powerhouse with a single punch. The reward of 500,000 star crystals didn't attract many true experts in the Star Royal virtual combat world. When Yang Tian received more than 2 million reward points, he opened the reward points leaderboard. Zichin Yang Tian, who was ranked 2nd, only had about 400,000 reward points, which was only 1/3 of Yang Tian's. There weren't many exotic beasts left, and the time was almost up. There was still about half an hour left. Even if Yang Tian was given half an hour, it would be impossible for him to obtain 800,000 reward points. If it were someone else, they would have already sat down and rested. However, after Yang Tian took a look at the leaderboard, he continued hunting exotic beasts, even going so far as to snatch kills from others. How infuriating! He clearly got first place for sure. Why is he still snatching from us? This person is really abnormal. Yeah, his strength attribute is too terrifying. If he doesn't die, he will become an abnormal expert sooner or later. Who knows, he might already be a famous expert in the universe. The virtual combat world had already sent a message to clarify that Yang Tian didn't cheat. Then, there was only one possibility, and that was that Yang Tian's strength attribute was too special. After some of the cultivators were snatched by Yang Tian, they weren't as angry as before, only feeling a deep sense of helplessness. Comparing oneself to others was really infuriating. Half an hour passed very quickly. In the end, Yang Tian was ranked first with 1,543,250 reward points. As for the second place, I was the strongest with 53,770 reward points, more than 1,000,000 behind Yang Tian. Seeing this result, Zichen Yangyu, who wanted to compete with Yang Tian, could only smile bitterly. The difference was too great. As soon as the results came out, Yang Tian received 500,000 star crystals as a reward. The auxiliary device notified him that 500,000 star crystals had been transferred to Yang Tian's anonymous account in the Universe Bank. After it ended, only a few people were happy. After spending half a day, most of them had wasted 100,000 star crystals. 3 days later, Yang Tian didn't need to compete for combat power and could directly participate in the Star General Beast Corps reward event. This made Yang Tian very happy. To be honest, the reward event just now didn't completely excite him. He didn't know how many cultivators would participate in the reward event 3 days later. Yang Tian was sitting on the grass in silence when Zichen Yangyu walked over and said with a smile, "You got first place and received 500,000 star crystals as a reward. How do you feel?" Zichen Yangyu walked in front of Yang Tian and sat down in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian smiled and shook his head. "It's not that great. It still doesn't feel exciting enough." Zichen Yangyu nodded. "In 3 days, you will definitely see a big scene. At that time, all the powerhouses in the virtual combat world will appear. Many of them will be like you, people who will receive special treatment." Yang Tian understood that he wasn't the first person to receive special treatment. The universe was very big, and there were all kinds of people. There were many people stronger than him. Zichen Yangyu said, "Yang Tian, you also received special treatment, right?" Yang Tian nodded. Zichen Yangyu shook his head and sighed. The existence of special treatment in this virtual world has long been an open secret. It's just that the system hasn't acknowledged it. Actually, this is good for ordinary cultivators like us. We don't have to compete with freaks like you for small rewards. Yang Tian asked curiously, "How many people will participate when the time comes?" Zichen Yangyu said, "There will be more than 100,000 people. However, most of the cultivators will only go with the intention of watching the show. At that time, it won't just be a battle between cultivators and mutated beasts. In the end, there will be battles between cultivators. Beast cores worth hundreds of millions are very attractive to super-grade powerhouses." When Zichen Yangyu said this, Yang Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. He was looking forward to the event in 3 days. Yang Tian had been in this virtual world for half a day. After chatting with Zichen Yangyu for a while, he left the virtual combat world. Chapter 348. Squeak, squeak. Seeing that Yang Tian had woken up, the little blue dragon, who had been waiting for half a day, let out a happy cry. When the virtual equipment cabin opened, Yang Tian held his forehead and let out a long sigh. After he woke up, the situation in the virtual world just now was like a dream. Yang Tian carefully sensed his body. Sure enough, the injuries he suffered in the virtual world had some effect on his body in the real world. He could feel some stabbing pain in the injured parts. But soon, the stabbing pain disappeared. The intense activity in the virtual world had caused his body in the real world to sweat a little. After Yang Tian took a shower, Yang Tian let the auxiliary device check his account in the Universe Bank. There were indeed 500,000 star crystals in the account. This made Yang Tian very happy. He spent 100,000 star crystals and earned even more star crystals in return. If he could earn back the Star Warlord level Beast Core next time, then the 1,000,000 credits he owed the college would be canceled out. Speaking of the 1,000,000 credits, Yang Tian was a little distressed. That was 1,000,000 credits. How could he earn enough? Qin Fei was waiting for Yang Tian's good news in the Superstar Divinity Temple. "Forget it. I won't think about it for now." Yang Tian slapped his forehead. Then, a man and a dragon went outside the villa. After going out for a while and entering the virtual world for half a day, the sky was almost dark. Yang Tian took out a grill and other tools from his storage bracelet. He also took out some fresh beast meat and began to grill it for the little blue dragon. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon had matured a lot. When it ate the grilled meat, it even made a sound and chatted with Yang Tian. The little blue dragon asked about the situation after Yang Tian entered the Star Imperial virtual combat world. Yang Tian told the little blue dragon in detail what happened inside. Hearing the situation inside, the little blue dragon felt very curious and told Yang Tian that it also wanted to enter. As soon as the little blue dragon said this, Yang Tian's eyes began to turn. Is this possible? He wondered if the Star Royal virtual battle system had such a function. Logically speaking, as long as it was an intelligent creature with the ability to think independently, it should be able to enter the virtual combat world. I think so. However, I need to get my hands on a virtual battle chip. Yang Tian thought for a moment and said to the little blue dragon, "Creak, creak, creak." As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon cried out excitedly and jumped on Yang Tian's shoulder. It rubbed its head against Yang Tian's cheek, causing Yang Tian's face to be covered in barbecued meat grease. After Chu Yangang arrived at Ketla Star, she began to familiarize herself with her new lifestyle. The lifestyle of a technologically advanced and prosperous planet was completely different from other planets. It could be said that most prosperous planets were heaven for ordinary humans. Chu Yangang was a cultivator and had a strong learning ability. It only took her a few hours to adapt to this world. The city she was in now was not Kai City, but Superstar City, which was not far from the Superstar Academy. This city was at least 10 times smaller than Kai City. It was also named Superstar City because it was very close to the Superstar Academy. If one took a small car, one could reach the entrance of the Superstar Academy in about 10 minutes. Of course, Chu Yangang did not know that Yang Tian was at the Superstar Academy. Otherwise, she would have rushed to the Superstar Academy as soon as possible. After spending a few hundred star crystals, Chu Yangang rented an independent 3-story building outside the Superstar City. She planned to live in seclusion on this planet for a while. Other than avoiding the pursuit of those mysterious people, Chu Yangang also had an indescribable feeling. As someone who practiced mental power, she trusted her intuition very much. Otherwise, she might have left this planet already. Night came quickly. Chu Yangang took a bath in the bathroom and sat in the living room in a white bathrobe. Then, she turned on a 3D movie. The three-dimensional scene enveloped Chu Yangang. This made Chu Yangang feel as if she was sitting in the movie world as a bystander. She was watching the movie coldly. This was a form of entertainment for ordinary humans. The male lead in the movie was driving an agile and domineering mecha to kill Zergs on a planet. The beautiful female lead had already fallen into the Zerg army's encirclement. The male lead piloted the mecha to fight against the Zergs in order to save the female lead. After watching for less than half an hour, Chu Yangang lost interest in the movie. This kind of immersive movie made the scene seem real. However, in Chu Yangang's eyes, the story was too fake. The male lead piloting the mecha was only handsome. He did not have any foundation in cultivation. His movements were weak and feeble. After turning off the projector and yawning, Chu Yangang prepared to rest. Watching this kind of movie was a waste of time. Also, Chu Yangang was indeed a little tired because she had been running nonstop all this time. Chu Yangang had just turned off the 3D movie when she suddenly frowned. At this moment, huff, huff, huff. Suddenly, dozens of wind sound could be heard outside the house. Then, a deep and hoarse voice came from outside. The one in the house, you have been surrounded. You can't escape no matter what. If you hand over the item obediently, we can let you go. Chu Yangang did not have time to change her clothes. She tightened the belt of her bathrobe and said coldly, "Stop dreaming. Even if you kill me, you won't be able to get it." Before Chu Yangang could finish her sentence, her mental power suddenly burst out. This time, there were many people chasing after her. The dozens of people outside were also very powerful. It seemed that it would be very difficult for her to escape this time. Since that was the case, Chu Yin was prepared to use her most powerful mental power for one last fight. Seeing that the little blue dragon had swallowed another large plate of barbecued meat, Yang Tian smiled and asked, "Xiaolong, it's late. Have you eaten enough?" Although the little blue dragon was in the shape of a mini little blue dragon, its appetite was very big. It had probably eaten more than 100 pounds of barbecued meat since the evening. The little blue dragon could not be blamed. After all, it had been a long time since the little blue dragon had eaten a full meal of barbecued meat. Squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon squeaked twice, indicating that it was very satisfied. This time, not only did it eat enough barbecued meat, but it also drank a lot of wine. Yang Tian smiled and nodded. Just as he was about to pack his things, a strange feeling suddenly appeared in his mind. This feeling came from his mental power world. Yang Tian frowned and closed his eyes to sense it carefully. When he completely relaxed his body and mind, he finally understood that his mental power world had sensed another type of mental power. This mental power was emitted from Chu Yin-Gang. Yang Tian was very familiar with Chu Yin-Gang's mental power. It seemed not far away. Chapter 349. Bang, bang, bang. Dozens of people broke through the wall and rushed toward Chu Yin-Gang. Chu Yin-Gang frowned. Her powerful mind power turned into dozens of invisible arrows and rushed toward the dozens of intruders in black armor. The special attribute of mind power was that it could be used at will. The speed was up to the user's discretion. As soon as Chu Yin-Gang thought about it, her mind power rushed into the bodies of the dozens of intruders and entered their minds. Bang, 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 bang. Then dozens of explosions could be heard. Before the dozens of intruders could even reach Chu Yin-Gang, the blood vessels in their bodies suddenly burst, causing blood to splatter all over the sky. Then they fell to the ground. Chu Yin-Gang killed dozens of people with just a thought. These people were at the same level as her mind power. They were all at the planet warlord level. At the same level, Chu Yin-Gang's attack was even more powerful than Yang Tian's. Chu Yin-Gang seized this opportunity and rushed out of the hole in the wall that was created by the collision. Whoosh! As soon as Chu Yin-Gang appeared outside the house, there was a gust of wind. Faster than the wind, a man in red armor appeared. He was faster than the speed of sound. In a flash, he blocked Chu Yin-Gang's path and reached out to grab her neck. This was a type of capturing skill. Clearly, this man in red armor wanted to capture Chu Yin-Gang and force her to hand over the seed of the Tree of World. However, before his hand could touch Chu Yin-Gang's neck, his hand was blocked by an invisible force. At the same time, an extremely invasive force rushed into his body. The man in red armor was stunned. He channeled the power in his body and immediately dispelled Chu Yin-Gang's mind power that invaded his body. In this short period of time, Chu Yin-Gang's figure flashed and passed him, trying to escape. However, suddenly, another man in red armor appeared in front of Chu Yin-Gang and blocked her way. Chu Yin-Gang immediately changed her direction. However, a red light flashed in front of her, and another man in red armor appeared in front of her. At this critical moment, Chu Yin-Gang did not give up and quickly retreated. At this moment, a hand reached for the back of her neck. Poof! The hand easily pierced through Chu Yin-Gang's spiritual defense and touched her skin. Chu Yin-Gang was shocked. Her mental power burst out again, and her body flashed repeatedly. Finally, she escaped from the hand that was about to grab her neck. Give up. Although your mind power is strong, you won't be able to escape from us, who are at the star grade. When Chu Yin-Gang stopped, the hoarse voice sounded again. Chu Yin-Gang scanned her surroundings and found that she had been surrounded. 4 red-armored people were scattered in 4 different directions, less than 20 meters away from her. On the outside, there was a large number of black-armored people. These black-armored men were all planetary states. If it was just them, Chu Yin-Gang was confident of escaping. However, the 4 red-armored men were much stronger than her. If she hadn't used her mental power with all her might, she would have been caught by them. These people obviously wanted to capture him alive, so they left some leeway in their attacks. Apart from the four powerful red-armored men, there was an even more powerful man. This man was the middle-aged man who had spoken with a hoarse voice. As soon as his hoarse voice sounded, a middle-aged man in a black robe walked out of the dark forest ahead and appeared before Chu Yin Gang's eyes. The Ketra star also had a satellite. When night fell, there would sometimes be two large moons hanging in the sky. On a clear night, they would appear especially bright. What was different from Earth was that the moon would only appear once in a while. Under the bright moonlight, the middle-aged man's face appeared clearly before Chu Yin Gang. This middle-aged man had long white hair and a thin face. He looked a little sinister. "Who are you people?" Chu Yin Gang asked with a frown when she saw this middle-aged man. The music boundary star zone had been destroyed a long time ago. Who would have thought that a group of people would be stationed at the periphery of the music boundary star zone? The black fragmentary star was just one of them. These people were really willing to wait in order to obtain the seed of the world tree. In response to Chu Yin Gang's answer, the middle-aged man laughed self-deprecatingly. "You are asking what organization we are from, right? I definitely won't answer that. As I said before, as long as you hand over the seed, we will let you go immediately. In fact, we are not interested in you at all. We only want what you have obtained. This thing is very important to us. Otherwise, we wouldn't have waited for such a long time." After the middle-aged man finished speaking, Chu Yin Gang lowered her head slightly and raised her wrist to look at the red storage bracelet on her wrist. She and Yang Tian had obtained this bracelet in the Death Star Zone. At that time, there were two bracelets, one black and one red. Yang Tian had kept the black bracelet and given her the red one. In the middle-aged man's eyes, Chu Yin Gang seemed to be thinking about something. In fact, Chu Yin Gang was reminiscing about the past. Her heart was filled with disappointment. She thought that it would be great if Yang Tian didn't have anyone he loved deeply. The two bracelets, one big and one small, had appeared at the same time on her and Yang Tian's wrists. Somehow, they were hinting at something. However, just as Yang Tian had said, there was no omnipotent God in the universe. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been reduced to this state. The middle-aged man looked at Chu Yin Gang very patiently. There was a trace of excitement and worry in his eyes. He was excited because they were so close to the seed of the world tree. He was worried because they might not be able to obtain it in the end. Therefore, when dealing with Chu Yin Gang, they were very careful. They were afraid that Chu Yin Gang would destroy the seed of the world tree in despair. A long time ago, their organization had obtained more than one seed of the world tree. However, in the end, they had all failed to plant it. After a long time, even though the world tree had sprouted and grown and even covered the entire planet, it had withered in the end. After countless planting experiments, they finally understood the crux of the problem. The seeds they obtained were all immature. They were fake seeds produced by the world tree. The seeds produced by a strange life form like the world tree couldn't be replicated using high-tech methods. Therefore, they began to search again. After expending a lot of manpower and resources, after a long time, they finally found it. Under such circumstances, the middle-aged man and Chu Yin Gang felt very conflicted. Time passed by slowly. Soon, more than 10 minutes had passed. The surroundings became quieter and quieter. As time passed, the middle-aged man finally couldn't help but say, as the successor of the music boundary starfield, "Don't you want to see the music boundary starfield reborn one day?" His words made Chu Yin Gang raise her head. The middle-aged man thought that his words had moved Chu Yin Gang. Unexpectedly, Chu Yin Gang sneered. "Give up. The music boundary starfield can only be reborn in the hands of me and my people, not you." When the middle-aged man heard this, his eyes widened in anger. He said coldly, "You're courting death. Kill. You're the ones courting death." Before the middle-aged man could finish the word kill, he was interrupted by a voice that appeared out of nowhere. At this moment, Chu Yin Gang was stunned. This voice was so familiar. Chapter 350. A familiar voice entered Chu Yin Gang's ears. Then, a familiar figure entered her sight. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon hadn't changed at all. However, why had the little blue dragon's horns turned golden? Chu Yingying, long time no see. I didn't expect that we would meet on the Ketla planet. Yang Tian slowly walked over and smiled at Chu Yingying. Yang Tian was also very happy to see Chu Yingying. You? Chu Yingying looked at Yang Tian's smiling face and was so excited that she couldn't speak for a moment. Suddenly, Yang Tian's figure flashed past one of the red-armored men and appeared in front of Chu Yingying. The little blue dragon, which was lying on Yang Tian's shoulder, chirped twice and greeted Chu Yingying. Whoa! Looking at Yang Tian in front of her, Chu Yingying suddenly threw herself into Yang Tian's arms and started crying. What was going on? The middle-aged man with a thin face and the four red-armored men all frowned. They hadn't expected that Chu Yingying would actually know a powerhouse on the Ketla planet. The feeling that Yang Tian gave them. Judging from the aura he was emitting, he wasn't even comparable to a planet realm cultivator. However, Yang Tian's speed just now was too fast. If he wasn't at the star realm or above, it was impossible for him to be so fast. Yang Tian glanced at the surrounding situation and patted Chu Yingying's back with a smile. Ever since leaving the purple planet, Chu Yingying hadn't had a good day. At this moment, she had suddenly welcomed hope in the midst of despair. Normal people wouldn't be able to control such complicated emotions. Moreover, Chu Yingying still had feelings of dependence on Yang Tian. To her, this was like a wrong child seeing an adult, or a helpless girl seeing her boyfriend. Seeing Yang Tian's arrogant behavior after arriving, the middle-aged man gritted his teeth and asked indifferently, "Who are you?" Hearing the middle-aged man's voice, Chu Yingying finally stopped crying and left Yang Tian's arms. She wiped her eyes and looked at Yang Tian with embarrassment. What reassured her was that Yang Tian didn't look worried at all. His eyes were filled with confidence, just like when they had met in the domain of death. Looking at the middle-aged man with a thin face, Yang Tian smiled and said, "I'm her friend." "Friends? I advise you not to get involved in this matter. It won't do you any good." The middle-aged man looked at Yang Tian's eyes and said lightly. His voice made people feel cold. Yang Tian lowered his head and glanced at Chu Yingying. He found that Chu Yingying's appearance had changed a little. When they were hugging, Yang Tian noticed that she had lost a lot of weight. However, the power in her body had increased a lot. After saying that, the middle-aged man looked at Yang Tian's reaction. Yang Tian remained unmoved. In his opinion, Yang Tian was showing him a disdainful attitude. Yang Tian didn't care about them at all. Judging from the aura emanating from the middle-aged man, he was at most a Stargrade warlord. Xiaolong, get rid of him. Don't let him escape. The middle-aged man had just opened his mouth to speak when he heard Yang Tian's cold voice. This time, he choked again. The little blue dragon had been itching to give it a try for a long time. It had a natural fondness for fighting. Furthermore, it seemed like the middle-aged man's strength wasn't bad. A fight will be very interesting. As soon as Yang Tian finished speaking, the little blue dragon jumped off Yang Tian's shoulder and shot into the air. It quickly circled in the air a few times before transforming into a 10-meter-long golden-horned azure dragon. Roar! The enlarged little blue dragon gave off a sense of oppression. After it roared, the surrounding people in black armor couldn't help but take a few steps back. "Kill!" the middle-aged man said coldly. The word "kill" was finally uttered by him. Just now, he had been choked twice by Yang Tian, so he was very unhappy. Whoosh! Before the middle-aged man finished speaking, the four red-armored people rushed toward Yang Tian. When the four of them moved, they were extremely fast. The friction between their bodies and the air produced an ear-piercing whistling sound. As for the little blue dragon, it swooped down toward the middle-aged man with a thin face. Facing the four red-armored people rushing toward him, Yang Tian suddenly unleashed a powerful aura. This aura was extremely dangerous to the four red-armored people. The four of them were extremely fast and came from four different directions. Yang Tian hugged Chu Yingying's waist and kicked off from the ground. With a boom, he shot into the air with Chu Yingying. They were too fast. Chu Yingying could feel that her skin was hurting from the air currents. Yang Tian dodged in time. The four red-armored people's figures flashed past where they were standing. In Chu Yin Guying's eyes, it was just a flash of red light. Only then did she realize that the four red-armored people hadn't used their full strength against her. Yang Tian was in the air. With Chu Yin Guing in his arms, he flipped in the air. When his head was facing down, Yang Tian slammed his palm into the ground. Boom! After the powerful palm hit the ground, there was a loud sound. It was as if the ground had been blasted open by a bomb. Dust and dirt sputtered in all directions, forming a large cloud of dust. At this time, a scimitar that was spinning at high speed suddenly broke through the sand and slashed toward Yang Tian and Chu Yin Guing. Yang Tian was already holding a long red sword in his hand, and he slashed at the scimitar. With a boom, the red wind blade from the scimitar hit the scimitar and sent it flying. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At this time, several more scimitars came at them. Chu Yin Guing saw the scimitar's trajectories and frowned. She unleashed her powerful spiritual energy, wanting to stop the scimitars. At the same time, the air around them seemed to have frozen. When the two of them were falling, they could feel the strong buoyancy in the air. Chu Yin Guying's spiritual energy was unable to stop the scimitars that were flying at them. Of course, Yang Tian knew this, and he swung his scimitar again. A fan-shaped red wind blade slashed out from the scimitar, and the scimitars were once again knocked away. After knocking away the scimitars, Yang Tian and Chu Yin Guing finally landed on the ground. Yang Tian pushed Chu Yin Guying's back, causing her to fall into the large crater that he had just created. The sand had yet to disperse, and Chu Yin Guing was able to hide. Next, Yang Tian rushed out of the sand and suddenly appeared in front of one of the red-armored men. After letting go of Chu Yin Guing, Yang Tian's speed increased by a lot. Before the red-armored man could even react, Yang Tian had already slapped him in the chest. Boom! Yang Tian slapped the chest of the red-armored man before his figure flashed, and he charged towards the next red-armored man. The four red-armored men were only at the Star Warrior level. Their combat power was far weaker than Yang Tian's. Yang Tian didn't even need to look at the people that he had slapped, and he already knew the result. Next, boom, and the next, boom. In less than 10 seconds, the four red-armored men had been taken care of by Yang Tian. On the other side, the little blue dragon was fighting with a middle-aged man with a thin face. Chapter 351. The little blue dragon did not spit out dragon flames or use lightning. Instead, it flew rapidly in the air and charged toward the middle-aged man with a thin face. The middle-aged man kept dodging. By the time Yang Tian had dealt with the four red-armored men, a black broadsword had appeared in his hand, and he slashed at the little blue dragon. Seeing this, Yang Tian's eyes widened and he clenched his fists. He was worried about the little blue dragon. However, in the face of this powerful attack, the little blue dragon did not dodge. Instead, it continued charging straight toward the middle-aged man. Bang! There was a loud noise. When the little blue dragon's head collided with the black broadsword in the middle-aged man's hand, it emitted a strong golden light. Yang Tian blinked his eyes due to the stimulation from the light. When Yang Tian opened his eyes again, the little blue dragon had already turned around and charged toward the surrounding black-armored men. This time, Yang Tian was finally relieved. Back when the little blue dragon had advanced, it had not been defeated by a star-level, domain-level powerhouse, and even had the upper hand. Now, facing a star-level, warrior-level cultivator was naturally not a problem. Boom! Boom! Boom, run! Ah! Whoosh! Boom! To deal with these black-armored men, the little blue dragon began to spit out dragon flames and bolts of lightning. Planet-level cultivators were no match for the little blue dragon. In the face of the little blue dragon's attacks, they fled in all directions and screamed in pain. After a few minutes, the battle was over. This time, those who had surrounded Chu Yin and Guing, or at least those who had appeared when Yang Tian arrived, were all killed by Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Yang Tian walked quickly toward the place where the little blue dragon had crashed into the middle-aged man. Under the dim light, he saw a black broadsword lying on the ground. There was also the scattered flesh and organs of the middle-aged man after his body exploded. These pieces of flesh still had vitality. The largest piece of flesh was wriggling, and soon it took the shape of a human. Yang Tian stood at the side and watched curiously. At this time, Chu Yin and Gu Ying had already climbed out of the pit and quickly walked to Yang Tian's side. Soon, a person who looked younger than before but looked very similar to the middle-aged man appeared. This was truly a miraculous process. A few minutes ago, it was still a piece of minced meat. In a short period of time, it had grown into a human. Phew! At this moment, the little blue dragon, who had transformed into a mini dragon, quickly flew over and landed on Yang Tian's shoulder. After the middle-aged man reformed his body, his aura was no longer as strong as before. After he came back to life, he opened his eyes and sat up. When he saw Yang Tian, his face was filled with shock. During this process, Yang Tian noticed that when the man opened his eyes, there was a brief moment of confusion. Yang Tian did not say anything. Instead, he turned around and looked at Chu Yin and Gu Ying. Chu Yin and Gu Ying understood what Yang Tian meant and asked, "Who are you? Why do you want the seed of the world tree?" Faced with Chu Yin and Gu Ying's question, the middle-aged man lowered his head as if he was thinking. However, Yang Tian noticed that the power in his body was quickly circulating. Clearly, this man was either going to attack Yang Tian and Gu Ying or run away. Bang! Yang Tian suddenly raised his hand and slapped out. The middle-aged man who had come back to life was blasted into pieces by Yang Tian's palm. After slapping the middle-aged man to death, Yang Tian helplessly said to Chu Yin and Gu Ying, "He won't say anything. Let's go." "All right." Chu Yin and Gu Ying nodded. The two of them turned around and walked toward the small house that Chu Yin and Gu Ying were renting. The little blue dragon turned around on Yang Tian's shoulder, opened its mouth, and spat out a stream of dragon flames. The blue dragon flames stuck close to the ground and rolled toward the scattered pieces of flesh and blood. Everything that could be burned on the ground nearby was burned into black residue. The small house that Chu Yin and Gu Ying were renting was still quite sturdy. The rooms on the first floor were destroyed, but the second floor was still intact. After entering the living room on the second floor, Yang Tian and Chu Yin and Gu Ying sat down. Yang Tian could not help but ask, "Who are these people?" "I don't know either." Chu Yin Guing shook her head and said, "But I know that they want the seed of the world tree." As Chu Yin Guing spoke, she took out a black seed that looked like a pumpkin from her storage bracelet and handed it to Yang Tian. Yang Tian stretched out his hand, and Chu Yin Guing placed the seed in Yang Tian's palm. Looking at the seed in his hand, Yang Tian smiled and said, "Aren't you afraid that I'm in cahoots with those people?" Of course, this was a joke. Chu Yin Guing smiled and said, "If that's the case, why did your organization go through so much trouble? If they sent you here directly, I would have given it to you long ago." After saying this, the two of them laughed. "You have to keep such a precious thing well." Yang Tian could not see anything special about the seed, so he handed it back to Chu Yin Guing. However, Chu Yin Guing shook her head and said, "It's better for you to keep this seed." "Why?" Chu Yin Guing's words surprised Yang Tian. This seed was something that Chu Yin Guing would rather lose her life than hand over. Seeing Yang Tian's surprise and confusion, Chu Yin Guing smiled and said, "Because you're also the successor of the music boundary starfield. Don't forget that I was the one who helped you build your spiritual boundary. As long as there is a spiritual boundary in your body, you're the successor of the music boundary starfield. You're also responsible for protecting this seed and rebuilding the music boundary starfield." Yang Tian nodded. That made sense. Chu Yin Guing continued, "Also, it's safer to leave it with you than with me." Phew! After saying this, Chu Yin Guing let out a long breath. She raised her left leg and crossed it over her right leg, revealing her two long, white legs. Yang Tian glanced at them and turned his head to look out of the window. There were still flames outside. Some of the trees that were ignited by the little blue dragon's dragon flames were still burning. When Chu Yin Guing saw that Yang Tian had turned his head away, She smiled and pulled down her bathrobe to cover her legs. She asked, Yang Tian, when did you leave that purple planet? Your realm has increased so quickly. Actually, half a year ago, I was still on that planet. Yang Tian turned around and told her about what happened after Chu Yin Gang left. After that, Yang Tian asked about what happened after Chu Yin Gang left. The two chatted like old friends who had been separated for a long time. Before they knew it, the sun had risen. Chu Yin Gang, who had not had a good night's sleep, could not help but yawn. She was indeed very tired. Go and rest. I'll stay here and watch over you. Yang Tian knew that Chu Yin Gang was very tired and smiled. Chu Yin Gang nodded and said, I won't sleep in the room. I'll sleep here. With that, Chu Yin Gang curled up her body and closed her eyes. Soon, she began to snore softly. Chapter 352. Yang Tian did not expect that Chu Yin Gang could sleep so well. She slept from day to night, and then from night to dawn. During this process, Chu Yin Gang did not even change her sleeping position. It could be seen how tired she was. When Yang Tian thought that Chu Yin Gang would sleep for 3 days and 3 nights before waking up, she finally opened her eyes. I slept so soundly. Chu Yin Gang, who had just woken up, stretched lazily and sighed. Hearing Chu Yin Gang's voice, Yang Tian opened his eyes. While Chu Yin Gang was resting, Yang Tian did not slack off. The path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If you did not advance, you would fall behind. He calmed down and observed the changes in his cells after being stimulated by energy. Yang Tian had never relaxed his expectations of himself. If he wanted to be satisfied, he would have to become the #1 person in the universe before he could relax. After stretching, Chu Yin Gang looked at Yang Tian and smiled. Then, she went into her room and changed into a clean set of clothes. When Chu Yin Gang walked out of her room, she was wearing a white shirt, a dark red suit, a short skirt, nude-colored stockings, and red high heels. She was dressed like a white-collar lady. Yang Tian could tell that Chu Yin Gang's clothes were made by the sisters, 7 Light Rain and 7 Color. Yang Tian was the one who told him about it. Chu Yin Gang was holding 2 large cups of fruit juice. She sat next to Yang Tian and handed one to Yang Tian. Squeak, squeak. At this time, the little blue dragon's cry could be heard. Then a green shadow flashed. The little blue dragon appeared on the table in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian immediately put down his cup and took out an empty cup from his storage bracelet and a cylindrical container for wine. He poured a cup of wine for the little blue dragon. After the little blue dragon drank the wine, he immediately went out. With the little blue dragon watching from the outside, no one would be able to approach this place without anyone noticing. It would be great if you could enter the Superstar Academy. Yang Tian took a sip of the juice and said lightly. Superstar Academy recruited students based on their lifespan. Although Chu Yin Gang looked young, she was already more than 100 years old based on planet Kytra's time. Chu Yin Gang said, I still don't know how those people found me in such a short time. Although some of them had died, more people would find this place. I plan to leave this planet. Yang Tian thought for a moment and said, Superstar Academy may need a talent like you. If possible, perhaps you can enter the Superstar Academy and become a professor. Yang Tian said this for a reason, because in the Superstar Academy, there was no professor specializing in spiritual force. It was estimated that the Superstar Academy lacked such talents. When Yang Tian said this, Chu Yin Gang knew what Yang Tian was thinking. She shook her head and said, I won't teach those students spiritual force. Yang Tian smiled and said, You can choose not to teach all the students. If you can stay in the Superstar Academy, those people won't dare to break into the academy. Chu Yin Gang frowned and thought about it. Chu Yin Gang had always thought that the destruction of the music boundary star field was caused by the Superstar Temple. But after her investigation, she found that it was not the Superstar Temple. Instead, it was another mysterious and enormous force. The group of people who chased her before was just a small part of it. This force seemed to hate the people of the music boundary star field very much and wanted to kill them all. If it was the Superstar Temple, planet Ipa would not have existed until now. It It would have been destroyed by the superstar temple long ago. However, the destruction of the music boundary star field seemed to be related to the superstar temple. Chu Yin-gang thought for a moment, and then said to Yang Tian, "Okay, but I won't teach all the students." Yang Tian nodded. This matter was not confirmed yet, so Yang Tian could only go back and ask. After drinking the juice in the cup, Chu Yin-gang looked into Yang Tian's eyes and said with some expectation, "Yang Tian, take me out for a walk." Yang Tian scratched his head and said helplessly, "I'm afraid that won't work because I'm also being chased. The people who want my life are all over the planet." After saying that, Yang Tian told Chu Yin-gang about what happened after he came to the Superstar Academy. Previously, Yang Tian was afraid that Chu Yin-gang would be worried, so he did not tell her about this matter. After Yang Tian finished, Chu Yin-gang said, "All right then, I'll wait here for your news." After Yang Tian left the little blue dragon behind, he returned to the Superstar Academy and found Professor Shenwu. Professor Shenwu was in the intermediate student area, teaching a group of intermediate students. The reason why the Superstar Academy was called an academy was because it was actually a special school. Here, one could learn a lot of cultivation methods. The professors would also teach classes every once in a while. When Yang Tian arrived at the intermediate student area, he saw hundreds of intermediate students sitting casually on the grass in a few circles. Professor Shenwu was sitting cross-legged in the middle, talking and gesturing with his hands, his saliva flying everywhere. The surrounding students were listening very seriously. Yang Tian glanced around and found two familiar people among these intermediate students. One was Soli, and the other was Juliang. Low-level students could not go to the advanced student area, but advanced students could go to the low-level student area at will. The surrounding space was empty. When Yang Tian appeared, many intermediate students saw him. Yang Tian was about to stand in the distance and wait for a while, but at this time, Professor Shenwu waved at him, indicating that he should go over immediately. Yang Tian had no choice but to quickly walk forward. Seeing Yang Tian walk over, Professor Shenwu waved his hand, and the surrounding students immediately stood up and scattered. Yang Tian came to the front of Professor Shenwu and sat down. The grass was very soft, and sitting on it was like sitting on a cushion. After Yang Tian sat down, Professor Shenwu asked, "You're in a hurry to find this old man. What's the matter?" Then he took out a drink bottle from his storage bracelet and pressed on it. The lid opened, and the smell of alcohol came out. Yang Tian smiled and said, "It's nothing important. I just want to ask Professor, is the academy still recruiting professors?" Professor Shenwu shook his head straightforwardly. "A professor of spiritual power," Yang Tian added. Professor Shenwu was stunned by Yang Tian's words. He looked at Yang Tian and asked, "Who is it?" "A friend of mine." Yang Tian smiled. Professor Shenwu said, "The academy is lacking such professors. Ever since the music realm starfield was destroyed, those old fellows who taught spiritual power left one after another. If your friend is willing, the academy will definitely welcome her." Yang Tian said, "She has some conditions." "What conditions?" Professor Shenwu asked. Yang Tian said, "That is, she won't teach everyone in the academy, and the students will all be chosen by her." After Yang Tian finished speaking, Professor Shenwu laughed. "It's the same as those old fellows before. This old man will help you ask." Yang Tian chuckled. "Many thanks, Professor Shenwu." Chapter 353. After separating from a Shenwu professor, Yang Tian was about to leave when Soli walked over. "Yang Tian, what's the number of your instant communicator?" Soli stared into Yang Tian's eyes and asked directly. "Instant communicator?" Yang Tian stared blankly for a moment before remembering that he had bought an instant communicator when he set out for training last time. He remembered that Seven Light Rain, the Seven Color Sisters, and Seven Light How had all asked him the same question. On Earth, this instant communicator was a mobile phone-type communication tool. Yang Tian immediately took it out from his storage bracelet. It was a cylindrical object with a diameter of only 5 millimeters. Its surface was covered with hairy yellow fibers. After Yang Tian took it out, he immediately stuffed it into his ear. The operation was completely voice-controlled. The energy source for this communicator was the body's bioelectric current. The communication number is 5854587. Yang Tian said a long string of numbers that had more than 10 digits. Soli nodded. I've noted it down. When I contact you, I'll automatically say my name. Soli was a woman who did things cleanly and efficiently. After she finished speaking, she nodded at Yang Tian and prepared to leave. Soli, what's your number? Yang Tian asked with a smile. Soli immediately gave Yang Tian a string of numbers. Then she said to Yang Tian, I'll be advancing in a few days. Perhaps I'd like to ask for your help. No problem. Yang Tian smiled. Soli thanked him and quickly left. After Soli left, Yang Tian turned around and saw Zhu Yangshi looking at him from not far away. For some reason, Zhu Yangshi looked a little flustered when he saw Yang Tian looking at him. Yang Tian found it very strange and waved at Zhu Yangshi. Zhu Yangshi was helpless. He lowered his head and quickly walked towards Yang Tian. When Zhu Yangshi stopped in front of him, Yang Tian asked with a smile, Zhu Yangshi, what are you doing? Zhu Yangshi raised his head and looked at Yang Tian. Although Yang Tian was smiling, his eyes were cold. Seeing Yang Tian's eyes, Zhu Yangshi instantly became nervous. I'm not. There must be something wrong with this fellow for him to speak so hesitantly. Yang Tian could tell at once. Furthermore, he knew that whatever this guy was doing must have something to do with him. Therefore, Yang Tian sneered and said, I know. If you don't say it, I will ask Xiao Long to play with you for a few days. I heard that the assessment is coming soon. You are likely to be eliminated. Of course, Yang Tian said this casually. Of course, it wasn't without evidence. He could tell from Zhu Liangshi's lazy appearance that this fellow had already lost confidence in the Academy's assessment. Hearing Yang Tian say this, Zhu Liangshi was shocked. He waved his hands and said, I was forced to do this. It was that man's subordinate. He asked me to install a surveillance camera near building 099 where you live. I couldn't install it in the room, but your auxiliary device could detect it. I was forced to take a picture of you just now. Zhu Yangshi was so nervous that his voice trembled as he said this. Spying on others in secret was a very disgusting behavior. When Yang Tian heard this, he was very unhappy. However, when he remembered that it was a measurable Star-Lord who had asked Zhu Liangshi to do this, Yang Tian could only sigh helplessly and say to Zhu Liangshi, don't do this in the future. If those people ask you, just tell them that you have been discovered by me. They probably won't let you do this again. Okay, I won't do it again. Zhu Liangshi hurriedly nodded when he heard Yang Tian say this. When he saw Zhu Liangshi's nervous appearance, Yang Tian smiled and said, stop pretending. In a few days, Xiao Long will still look for you to play. You're also considered my friend. I don't want you to be eliminated. Do your best. As Yang Tian said this, he patted Zhu Liangshi's shoulder and turned to leave. Zhu Liangshi saw Yang Tian's back and only reacted after a long time. He then let out a helpless cry. Zhu Liangshi had already seen how terrifying the little blue dragon was. He still remembered clearly how the little blue dragon had burned his butt in that cave that day. When he saw the little blue dragon, he felt a burning pain in his butt. Yang Tian knew that a measurable Star-Lord had asked Zhu Liangshi to take a picture of him for Qin Fei to see. At the end of the year, when he thought of Qin Fei, Yang Tian clenched his fists. The Superstar Divine Temple would select 5 divine generals at the end of the year. At that time, he would definitely be selected. After becoming a divine general, if possible, he would bring Qin Fei away from the Superstar Divine Temple and find the way back to Earth. It would be time to make a trip back. After that, he would help Xiao Long find its hometown and also make a trip to the Purple Star Empire to take revenge for the humans on Earth. This was the plan that Yang Tian had drawn up in his heart. It would be very difficult to realize each of these ideas. Since he had a goal, he would have to work hard to achieve it. After leaving the intermediate student area, Yang Tian immediately went to the lower student area. Yang Tian naturally came here to find Qi Guanghao. He still had to tell Zhu Wei about solely wanting to learn martial arts. Zhu Wei had already gone to Qi Guangyu and Qi Kai's side to be their personal bodyguard. After finding Qi Guanghao, he would be able to contact Zhu Wei. This kind of instant messenger was just a decoration for many cultivators. It was rarely used because cultivators were more independent and generally did not contact others. After arriving at the lower student area, Yang Tian stopped a lower student and asked where Qi Guanghao was. After getting the location of Qi Guanghao, Yang Tian directly walked over quickly. Qi Guanghao is currently training in the gravity room of the lower student area. The academy examination would be coming soon. Qi Guanghao had been working very hard recently. The lower students were all in the meteor star realm. They were still in the initial stage of cultivation and mainly focused on physical training. Cultivation was like building a tall building. First, one had to lay a good foundation. Training the physical body was to build the foundation. Yang Tian's current achievements were also because the little blue dragon had helped him build the foundation. Beat him hard for me. Yang Tian had just walked into the gravity room and felt the 5 times gravity. As he slowly walked forward, an arrogant shout came from the group of people in front of him. Then there was a bang, bang, bang sound of fists and feet hitting a person's body. Yang Tian walked over curiously. The 5 times gravity had almost no effect on Yang Tian. Seeing that it was Yang Tian walking over, the lower students consciously dispersed. Now in the academy, who did not know Yang Tian? At the same time, the sound of bodies being hit stopped. The crowd dispersed. When Yang Tian saw that the person lying on the ground, hugging his head and curling into a ball was Qi Guanghao, his eyes became cold. Qi Guanghao's injuries were not serious. Seeing that no one was hitting him anymore, he immediately got up from the ground. Standing up, Qi Guanghao saw Yang Tian at first glance and could not help but call out in surprise, "Brother Yang." Chapter 354. Yang Tian nodded at Qi Guanghao, then coldly glanced at the surrounding low-level students. Yang Tian's current aura was very strong. Many low-level students, with a guilty conscience, immediately lowered their heads, not daring to look at Yang Tian. Seeing that Yang Tian was about to get angry, Qi Guanghao quickly grabbed Yang Tian's arm and said, "Brother Yang, I'm fine." Yang Tian said, "I have something to talk to you about. Let's talk outside." After saying that, Yang Tian turned around and walked out of the gravity room. At this time, the gravity in the gravity room had begun to slowly decrease. The gravity of the gravity room, whether it was on or off, could not increase or decrease too quickly. Otherwise, it would cause great damage to the user's body. After Yang Tian left the gravity room, he kept walking forward until he reached a small forest before stopping. A few minutes later, Qi Guanghao caught up with him while panting. "Brother Yang, why are you looking for me?" After arriving behind Yang Tian, Qi Guanghao asked with some apprehension. When Yang Tian saw that kind of thing just now, he felt uncomfortable in his heart. At the same time, he was also afraid that Yang Tian would scold him. In Qi Guanghao's heart, Yang Tian's image had already surpassed that of an idol. Yang Tian did not explain the purpose of his visit. Instead, he turned around and looked at Qi Guanghao and asked faintly, "What happened just now?" Qi Guanghao raised his head and looked at Yang Tian. He scratched his head and said, "That group of people often bully me because they are stronger than me. Because they know that I relied on connections to get in, they somewhat look down on me." "Then what do you plan to do?" Yang Tian asked. "Me? Wait until I become stronger. I must beat them up one by one." Qi Guanghao gritted his teeth and said, "I'll help you beat them up, how about it?" Yang Tian said with a smile. Qi Guanghao quickly shook his head and said firmly, "This is my business. Brother Yang, please don't interfere. Moreover, in the academy, they don't dare to kill me. It's just some injuries. I'll be fine soon. Moreover, I found that every time they beat me, my strength increased a bit. So, good. How ambitious." Hearing Qi Guanghao's words, Yang Tian laughed and patted Qi Guanghao's shoulder. Earlier, Yang Tian's words were also probing Qi Guanghao. Qi Guanghao was not bad. Regardless of how his cultivation was, his mentality was extremely good. Yang Tian carefully sized up Qi Guanghao. Compared to when he entered the academy, Qi Guanghao was indeed much stronger. The academy had a special training method. In a very short period of time, Qi Guanghao's combat power was equivalent to a level 8 human warrior on Earth. Based on Qi Guanghao's rate of improvement, he would most likely pass the test. You just said that every time you get beaten up, your strength increases a little? Yang Tian asked after sizing up Shi Guanghao. Qi Guanghao nodded, yes. I've asked the others. They didn't have such a situation. Yang Tian was curious about this and asked, have you told Professor Shinwu about this? Qi Guanghao shook his head. I'm not qualified. Yang Tian gave it some thought and said to Qi Guanghao, relax your body. I'll use my spiritual power to take a look at your body. Qi Guanghao nodded. After Qi Guanghao relaxed, Yang Tian used a sliver of his spiritual power to enter Qi Guanghao's body. After this sliver of spiritual power swam around Qi Guanghao's body, Yang Tian did not notice anything special about Qi Guanghao's cells. Then, pung. Suddenly, Yang Tian thought of a way and sent Qi Guanghao flying with a palm strike. For this slap, Yang Tian only used his physical strength. He did not use any of his force. Buffed. Although Yang Tian only used a small amount of his strength, Qi Guanghao spat out a mouthful of blood after he landed on the ground and struggled to get up. Brother Yang Tian. Qi Guanghao smiled bitterly as he looked at Yang Tian. His eyes were filled with resentment. He understood why Yang Tian did this. However, the force was too strong, and it caused internal injuries. Relax your body. I'll take a look again. Yang Tian walked in front of Qi Guanghao and slowly walked around him. During this process, Yang Tian used his spiritual power to observe the condition of Qi Guanghao's body. Very soon, Yang Tian discovered to his surprise that the dead cells in Qi Guanghao's injured body were quickly replaced by new cells. The new cells were even stronger than the original cells. At the same time, these new cells also produced a sliver of special energy. Bloodline power. Yang Tian took a look and knew that this was the bloodline power produced in Qi Guanghao's body. This power was strengthening Qi Guanghao's body at an extremely fast speed. What kind of power are you cultivating? After examining the power in Qi Guanghao's body, Yang Tian asked. Qi Guanghao said, bloodline power. Most of the low-level students cultivate this kind of power. This kind of power is very easy to cultivate, and the realm increases quickly. The so-called bloodline power was similar to the Qigong cultivation of humans on Earth. It created a world in the body that contained energy, just like the Dragon Ball world and the spiritual power world in Yang Tian's body. The essence of this cultivation method was from the outside to the inside. Bloodline power, on the other hand, was from the inside to the outside. It used the body's cells to produce energy. All the cells in the body were tools to store energy. These two cultivation methods were different, but they led to the same goal. In the end, they would change the cells and reach the process of evolving into a higher-level life form. Obviously, Qi Guanghao's body was special and suitable for cultivating bloodline power. Yang Tian thought for a moment and then suggested to Qi Guanghao, if you believe me, then change to cultivating bloodline power. For a cultivator, changing the cultivation method was a very difficult decision. Fortunately, Qi Guanghao was still in the beginning stage, so it was not too late to correct it. And, after Yang Tian finished speaking, Qi Guanghao immediately nodded. Brother Yang, I believe you. What's your instant messaging number? Also, your sister Qi Guangyu, your sister Qi Kai, and your brother Zhu. Tell me everything. Yang Tian then thought of looking for Qi Guanghao's Mu Bai, patted Qi Guanghao's shoulder and asked. Qi Guanghao smiled and took out 3 cards from his pocket and handed them to Yang Tian. I was also going to tell you. After leaving the low-level students area and returning to Villa 099 in the high-level students area, Yang Tian received a message from the academy system. The content of the message was to let Yang Tian bring people to the Superstar Academy for an interview. Seeing this message, Yang Tian had a premonition that it was a success. It also said that if he could find a professor of mental power for the academy would reward Yang Tian with 100,000 academic credits. The reward of 100,000 academic credits was an unexpected gain for Yang Tian. After shutting down the academy's system, Yang Tian immediately left the academy and returned to the small building where Chu Yanguing was. At this time, Chu Yanguing was waiting quietly in the small building. During the time when Yang Tian was away, nothing happened. The group of people chasing after Chu Yanguing had not reacted so quickly. However, it will be soon. Chapter 355. When Yang Tian, Chu Yanguing, and Chu Yanguing arrived at the academy's gate, the guards had already received the news and sent a luxurious car over. After they got into the car was driven directly to the academy's administration office. Then, the two were led to the dean's office by a young and beautiful assistant. The director's office looked like a study room. Despite the advanced technology of the universe, there were actually many bookshelves in this office. There were books of different sizes and colors on the bookshelves. After sitting in the dean's office for a while, the bored Yang Tian stood up and casually picked up a book with a red cover and flipped it open. The words on the cover were not in the universal language, and Yang Tian could not understand a single word. After flipping through it, Yang Tian put the book back. Next, he picked up a book with a blue cover. When he flipped it open, he saw that the book was written in another language. Yang Tian shook his head helplessly and put the book back. Seeing that Yang Tian was flipping through the book, Chu Yanguing also stood up and walked over to Yang Tian and casually picked up a book from the bookshelf. As soon as she flipped open the book, Chu Yanguing cried out in surprise. "What is it?" Yang Tian asked curiously. Chu Yanguing said, "This is the basic explanation for cultivating spiritual power on our Ipa planet." Hearing Chu Yanguing's words, Yang Tian had a guess in his heart. He immediately asked, "When did this book appear on your planet?" Chu Yanguing gave it some thought and said, "I think it was a few thousand years ago." After hearing Chu Yanguing's words, Yang Tian was even more certain that his guess was correct. And so, he began to search through the dozens of bookshelves. A few minutes later, Yang Tian was at the highest point of bookshelf. He saw a picture of the 8 trigrams on the book and immediately took it down. The Book of Changes. It was a book with a black cover. On it was a picture of the 8 trigrams and a large ancient seal character E. Outside of Earth, Yang Tian finally discovered the words on Earth, even though these words were from a few thousand years ago. Creak! Just as Yang Tian was about to open the book, the door to the director's office was pushed open. It was impolite to casually take a book to read here, so Yang Tian could only put the book back. Walking around the bookshelf, Yang Tian saw an old man in black, similar to a Chinese tunic suit, walking in. The old man's long grayish-white hair seemed to be a little dry, like thatch, but it was combed very neatly. His back was already a little hunched, and he was swaying a little when he walked. His face was full of wrinkles. This old man gave off the feeling that there was no vitality in him at all. It was as if he had one foot in the grave and could pass away at any time. Chu Yin and Guing were still holding a book in their hands. When the old man saw them, he chuckled and made an inviting gesture to Yang Tian and the others. Yang Tian, Chu Yin, and Gu Ying exchanged glances before sitting down on the semicircular sofa. The old man slowly walked to the opposite side of Yang Tian and Chu Yin Guing and slowly sat down. This old man is the director of the Superstar Academy. You could directly call me Director Xing Yi. After sitting down, the director slowly said. His voice was very hoarse. "Hello, Director Xing Yi. This is Chu Yin Guing. She is the successor of the Music Boundary Star Field." Yang Tian introduced. Principal Xing Yi nodded and used his gloomy eyes to size up Yang Tian, Chu Yin, and Guing. Then he nodded, and the two of you are not bad. Hearing Director Yi Xing's words, Yang Tian was finally relieved and said, "Then Chu Yin Guing can stay in the academy and become a professor?" Director Yi Xing shook his head and said, "She can stay in the academy, but she is not qualified to become a professor." When Yang Tian heard this, he was a little disappointed and asked, why? Chu Yanguing did not care. To her, it was fine as long as she could stay in the Superstar Academy. The outside world was too dangerous for her. However, since Yang Tian asked this, she also wanted to know the reason. Director Xing Yi smiled and said, because an old man said when he left the academy that if someone from the music boundary star field came to the academy to teach, it would be going against him. This old man does not want that grumpy old man to find trouble with this little girl. Who is that old man? Yang Tian did not ask. Director Xing Yi shook his head. Obviously, he did not want to answer this question. Although Chu Yanguing could not become a professor, it was also good for her to stay in the academy. Yang Tian did not need to worry about her anymore. In the academy, Chu Yanguing could still peacefully cultivate. Do you have any other questions? This old man can still answer some of your questions. Not long after this old man dies, you won't be able to ask even if you want to. After Director Xing Yi finished speaking, he sighed, I really envy you. You still have a young body. Director, I want to know the coordinates of Earth. You have books on Earth from thousands of years ago. You must know the coordinates of Earth, right? After Yang Tian finished speaking, he looked at Director Xing Yi with an expectant face. Director Xing Yi did not speak. Chu Yanguing added, there is also Ipa planet. Director Xing Yi smiled and said, this old man cannot tell you directly, but I can point out a path for you. After Director Xing Yi finished speaking, he stood up and slowly walked to the side of the bookshelf. He took out a book from the bookshelf and silently flipped through it. After about 10 minutes, Director Xing Yi carefully placed the book back on the bookshelf and returned to his desk. This old man actually did not use any high-tech equipment. He took out a pen and paper from his desk and wrote on it. After another 10 minutes, Director Xing Yi walked over with the paper and handed it to Yang Tian. Yang Tian received the snow-white paper. There were countless numbers and symbols on it. Seeing these numbers, Yang Tian helplessly shook his head, indicating that he did not understand. Director Xing Yi sat down and said, this is the number of the storage box in the Superstar Divine Temple that stores the star map crystal. After Yang Tian finished reading, he handed the paper to Chu Yanguing. Just as Chu Yanguing finished reading, the paper ignited and turned into gas. Not a single trace was left. Yang Tian did not mind. Although the time was very short, he had memorized all the numbers on it. I want to know, there was a powerful goddess. Yang Tian recounted his encounter with the goddess. Yang Tian really wanted to know who that goddess was. Since she was a goddess, why did she leave the Superstar Divine Temple? Yang Tian thought that Director Xing Yi would not answer. He did not expect that Director Xing Yi would close his eyes and recall for a long time. He slowly said, this has to start from several tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, this old man was still a guard of the Superstar Divine Temple. The previous goddess had passed away, and she had just arrived. She was a lively and cheerful young lady. Just like the current goddess, her heart was pure and kind. Chapter 356. Her real name is Shi Chunyuyu. A complicated expression appeared in Ding Xingyi's eyes when he read the name of the goddess. When Yang Tian saw the expression in Ding Xingyi's eyes, he knew that Ding Xingyi had once been an admirer of the goddess. But at that time, he was just a minor character, and he didn't even have the qualifications to speak to the goddess in the Superstar Divine Temple. After saying the name, Shi Chunyuyu, Ding Xingyi was silent for a long time before he continued. People change, especially when a woman meets love. One day, a young man from nowhere came to the Superstar Divine Hall and took away the lady goddess from the Superstar Divine Hall to the Superstar Divine Temple. This was an extremely humiliating matter. In order to find the goddess, even a nameless divine temple guard like me was sent out. When he spoke up to hear, Ding Xingyi stopped and took out a cup of water from his storage bracelet. And then, Chu Yanguing, who was extremely curious about this matter, couldn't help but feel anxious when she saw Ding Xingyi slowly unscrewing the cap of the bottle and slowly drinking the water. And then, Ding Xingyi put down the water and continued. The goddess returned of her own accord. However, her temperament was different from before. She started to cultivate diligently and became passionate about nurturing her own force. Of course, after the goddess returned, she went through a strict examination. There was nothing wrong with her body, and she hadn't been violated by a man. So, she still had the qualifications to hold the position of goddess of the superstar divine temple. It had to be said that the goddess was simply a genius on the path of cultivation. In a short 100 years, she cultivated from an ordinary human to the superstar domain lord realm. She was just a step away from becoming a Grand Star Lord and a top-notch expert of the universe. Her formidable strength made even more experts submit at her feet. Her formidable cultivation realm and the powerful forces under her command made her unwilling to wait any longer. She walked out of the superstar divine temple and wandered around the universe as if she was looking for something. During this process, her words threatened the superstar divine temple's declaration of the universe. She claimed that there was an even vaster world outside this universe, and she had gone to that world during the time she disappeared. Her words directly threatened the superstar divine temple's position in the universe. So, speaking up to here, Dean Xing, he stopped again, as if unwilling to continue talking. At this time, Yang Tian said, "Thus the superstar divine hall expelled this goddess from the divine hall, and then a war broke out." After Yang Tian finished speaking, Dean Xing nodded. In that war, a large number of experts in the universe died. The superstar divine temple suffered great losses, but in the end, that lady goddess still failed. I'm afraid it's not that simple, right? After Principal Xing Yi finished speaking, Yang Tian muttered. When Dean Xing Yi heard Yang Tian's words, he furrowed his brows and then said, "In the end, that mysterious young man that had once taken my lord goddess away appeared once again. In the end, another great battle ensued. What was strange was that in the process of the battle, even the subordinates of the goddess had joined forces with the powerhouses of the superstar divine temple to deal with the mysterious young man. In the end, that mysterious young man died, and the heavily injured lady goddess was extremely sorrowful and disappeared in the universe. For some reason, some of her subordinates, as well as some of the powerhouses of the superstar divine temple who had participated in the battle, were endlessly regretful afterwards. Even now, there are still many people who are using self-mutilation to repent for the matters of that day." After Dean Xing Yi finished speaking, Yang Tian thought of Grandfather Hong and Gao Yuan on the Purple Planet. These two people had been staying in that world of ice and snow. They were also repenting. Why are they repenting? Chu Yin Gang asked curiously. Dean Xing Yi shook his head and said, "This old man also wants to know. Unfortunately, this old man's life is about to come to an end. Tens of thousands of years have passed in the blink of an eye. This answer, you will need to answer it yourselves." Seeing that Dean Xing Yi appeared to be very tired after speaking, Yang Tian still asked, "I want to know where the dragon Starfield is." "Sir Dean, do you know?" The little blue dragon, who had been lying on Yang Tian's shoulder without making a sound, immediately became spirited when he heard Yang Tian ask this question. He looked at Dean Xing Yi with an expectant gaze. However, Dean Xing Yi shook his head. "This old man doesn't know. You can go ask High Priest Kaya." This answer was the same as Professor Shenwu's. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon were very disappointed. Yang Tian didn't ask anything else and left with Chu Yin Gai. This Dean seemed to be a very knowledgeable person. It was very likely that he spent most of his time on his interests and didn't raise his cultivation realm. Therefore, he didn't have long to live. As for people like Grandfather Hong and Gao Yuan, they were probably older than this Dean, but they could still live for a very long time. Even so, this Dean seemed to be very open-minded and didn't look at death with that much fear. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wasted so much time answering questions for Yang Tian and the others. Instead, he would have been busy looking for ways to prolong his life. After Dean Xing Yi asked some questions, Yang Tian had even more questions in his mind. He couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Sure enough, the more you knew, the more questions you had. Since he couldn't figure it out, Yang Tian didn't think about it anymore. He had gotten a huge benefit from meeting the old dean this time. He knew how to find Earth's coordinates in the universe. However, he had to enter the Superstar Divinity Temple to do this. He could let Qin Fei handle this matter, but Yang Tian didn't want her to take the risk. Yang Tian couldn't help but sigh inwardly. In the end, it was still a problem. He wasn't strong enough. As long as he became a top powerhouse in the universe, any problem wouldn't be a problem. As soon as he came down from the academic administration building, the young woman who had led Yang Tian and the others to the dean's office appeared again. She walked over and said to Chu Yangang, "Sir, please follow me." Obviously, the academy wanted to arrange accommodation for Chu Yangang. Chu Yangang looked at Yang Tian. Yang Tian smiled and said, "Go ahead. If there's anything, you can find me at the advanced student area, number 099. Only then did Chu Yangang leave with the young woman. She seemed to be more and more reliant on Yang Tian. Chu Yangang's matter was finally settled. Next, Yang Tian would start to work hard on his cultivation. After returning to Villa number 099, Yang Tian watched the video sent by Qin Fei again. Then, he opened the academy system. As soon as he opened the system, a notification appeared. Yang Tian let the auxiliary device bell open the notification. It was actually a new training project with 1,000,000 credits. Chapter 357. 1,000,000 academic credits. If he completed it, wouldn't he be able to return the academic credits he owed? Yang Tian immediately asked Bell to open the introduction of the training program. This was a training program that only advanced students could accept. The training program was even listed in a special format. Reward: 1,000,000 academic credits. Description: in a battle tens of thousands of years ago, the Superstar Divine Temple's flying cloud great priest died in battle. His corpse was left in the space bubble created during the battle. After tens of thousands of years, the space bubble suddenly became extremely unstable. The entrance will open soon. Students who accept the training program must bring back the flying cloud great priest corpse. Note: the space bubble is extremely unstable. Too much energy waves will cause it to be destroyed. Intruders will be annihilated along with the space. It is recommended that students above the Star Domain Lord realm do not accept this training program. Number of participants. This is a special training program. All advanced students can participate. Time: calculated from the time the training program was announced. Depart on the 5th day. Additional explanation 1. Other than the flying cloud great priest corpse, obtain the corpses of other powerhouses. Every corpse brought back will be rewarded with 100,000 academic credits. There is no limit to the number of corpses. In the space bubble, advanced students will not only face a complicated and harsh environment, but they will also be attacked by powerhouses outside the academy and students from the same academy. Please pay attention to your own safety. Please arrange for your family and assets before departure. Additional explanation 2. Due to the uniqueness of this training program, students who complete the training program will become the Chief Divine General in the Divine General Selection Examination at the end of the year. Yang Tian read it once and read it to the little blue dragon. Then, he said, "This mission is very dangerous." Squeak, squeak. The little blue dragon cried out excitedly. It was obvious that it wanted to experience it. This guy naturally did not know what fear was. Next, Yang Tian looked up information about the space bubble. The bubble-shattering space was a type of space. The principle behind its creation was like water in a cup. If a cup of water without bubbles was shaken a few times, bubbles would appear in the water. Gas would quickly float up and then burst. The universe space could be compared to water. When a powerful force exploded in the universe space, it would create a bubble space like a water bubble. The existence of this kind of space was not stable. Sometimes it would disappear the moment it was created. Sometimes they could exist for hundreds of millions of years. This training program that the Academy had released was to enter this kind of space. Perhaps, when the students entered, this bubble space would burst with a pop. The powerful spatial energy would instantly annihilate everything within it and turn them into spatial energy. Even a superstar realm expert wouldn't be able to escape death if they entered the bubble space and the bubble space was destroyed. The little blue dragon wasn't afraid, but Yang Tian had to consider whether it was worth it. Yang Tian was still very excited when he saw the reward of 1 million credits. But after reading the details, he gradually calmed down. After thinking for more than 10 minutes, Yang Tian narrowed his eyes and said to the little blue dragon, "Xiaolong, I've decided. Let's go. My intuition tells me that this training project will be more daunting than dangerous." The reason why Yang Tian made this decision was because he thought of some past events that Dean Xing he had mentioned when he was in Dean Xingyi's office. The feeling he got was that this bubble space must have been created during that battle. The Superstar Academy had always kept this matter a secret from the outside world, and very few people knew about it. Why did Dean Xingyi answer so readily when he asked just now? For a knowledgeable figure like Dean Xingyi, who had lived for tens of thousands of years, there must be some other meaning in doing so. As soon as these thoughts appeared in Yang Tian's mind, his intuition became even clearer. Therefore, Yang Tian finally made up his mind to go. "Bell, I'll accept this training project." Yang Tian, who had thought it through, immediately ordered the auxiliary device, Bell. The Academy system page that was displayed in front of Yang Tian's eyes quickly jumped a few times and fixed on the accepted project column. It showed that there were already 10 people who had accepted this training program. Of course, Yang Tian was also included among these 10 people. As soon as he accepted this training project, the instant communicator in Yang Tian's ear rang. It was from Sori. "Connect," Yang Tian immediately said. "Yang Tian," Sori's voice sounded. "It's me," Yang Tian replied. Sori said, "I heard that you advanced students have a new training project that you can accept with a reward of 1 million credits. Yang Tian did not expect Sori to know about it, and asked in surprise, "How did you know?" Sori said this kind of news has long been spread in the academy. The students in the intermediate student area are all talking about it. "I'll come to your place later. I want to take a look." "Okay." Yang Tian nodded. In the academy system, there were actually many training projects with more than 1 million credits. Yang Tian guessed that the reason why the students were talking about it was related to the Superstar Divine Temple. It must be known that most of the students in the academy wanted to enter the Superstar Divine Temple. A few minutes later, Bell received a report from the guards at the entrance of the advanced student area, saying that an intermediate student was looking for Yang Tian. Bell immediately sent a message to let him in. Yang Tian sat in the living room and waited. A few minutes later, Sori walked in. Knowing that Sori was a very straightforward woman, Yang Tian immediately asked Bell to open the introduction of this training project. "There are still 4 days," Sori muttered after carefully reading the content of the project. Sori was still an intermediate student and obviously could not accept this training project. After thinking for a while, Sori stood up and said to Yang Tian, "I'll come to you in 3 days. I want to advance to the Star Realm." "Isn't it too rushed?" Yang Tian asked worriedly. Obviously, Sori also wanted to accept this training project. Sori looked at Yang Tian's concerned eyes and smiled. "Don't worry. I won't forcefully advance for a training project." Yang Tian nodded. "I'm leaving," Sally said and left the room. She did not even spend more than 10 minutes at Yang Tian's place. After Sori left, Yang Tian asked Bell to open the project page. The number of people on it had increased from 10 to 15. There were at least 4 more days, and he did not know how many advanced students would participate in the end. Yang Tian could not help but think that if more than half of the advanced students went, if an accident happened, the Superstar Academy would suffer a great loss. This training project was very dangerous, and Yang Tian also had to make some preparations. For example, he had to record a video for Qin Fei and for his parents. If something happened, when Yang Tian tidied up his clothes, he coughed twice in front of Bell. Just as he was about to speak, Bell informed Yang Tian that a woman had come to the door. Then, the situation of Chu Yin Gu Ing standing outside the door was displayed in front of Yang Tian. "Open the door." Seeing that it was Chu Yin Gu Ing, Yang Tian immediately said to Bell. Chapter 358. How did the academy arrange for you? Chu Yin Gang entered the living room and sat down. Yang Tian poured her a glass of fruit juice and sat down. Chu Yin Gang said, "My residence is in the teaching area where the academy's professors live. The house there is twice as big as yours." Chu Yin Gang explained her living conditions, which made Yang Tian extremely envious. Although the Superstar Academy did not make Chu Yin Gang a professor, they treated her like one. "The academy can't raise you for nothing. What job did he arrange for you?" After Chu Yin Guing spoke, Yang Tian asked again. Chu Yin Gang shook her head. "I don't have any job. Professor Xingyi even talked to me personally. He said that it was because my seniors had made great contributions to the Superstar Academy. The resources I am enjoying now are all left behind by my seniors." "Then why did your seniors leave the Superstar Academy?" Yang Tian asked again. Chu Yin Gang said, "Because they were exiled. A long time ago, some seniors of the Music Boundary Star Field had a conflict with the Superstar Divine Temple and fought a war. The seniors of the Music Boundary Star Field who participated in the war were defeated and exiled to planet Ipa. Then, the professors of the Music Boundary Star Field and the Superstar Academy were very dissatisfied and left the Superstar Field to return to the Music Boundary Star Field. Because some of the seniors were exiled to planet Ipa, the strength of the Music Boundary Star Field was greatly reduced. So that's how it is." Yang Tian finally understood some things after listening to Chu Yin Gang's explanation. Previously, Yang Tian had guessed that the destruction of the Music Boundary Star Field was related to the war with Goddess Shi Chun, but it seemed that was not the case. The destruction of the Music Boundary Star Field was earlier than that war. "Yang Tian, did you accept the Academy's new mission?" Chu Yin Gang suddenly asked. This was also the reason why she came here. Chu Yin Gang was not as straightforward as So Li and only spoke at this time. "Yes, I feel that if I stay in the academy, my rate of improvement is too slow. I need to fight to constantly fight." This was what Yang Tian truly felt. "Then can I go with you?" Chu Yin Guing hesitated for a moment before asking with gritted teeth. She knew that her realm was too far away from Yang Tian's. After saying that, she couldn't help but feel nervous. Sure enough, the moment Yang Tian heard that, he shook his head and refused. "No, your mental power is strong, but your level is still too low." Chu Yin Gang did not give up despite Yang Tian's rejection. She pondered for a moment and said, "Don't you know that the bubble-breaking space is the best place to fight with mental power? Is there such a saying?" Yang Tian furrowed his brows. Could it be that Chu Yin and Gu Ying made this up in order to achieve their goal of traveling together? "Ding dang, do you think she's right?" Yang Tian turned his head and asked the floating support tool, Ding Dang. Yang Tian did not ask casually. Although Ding Dang was only a support tool, it could provide a lot of relevant information. Ding Dang was silent for a moment, as if it was analyzing. After more than a minute, Ding Dang's voice sounded. "Master, what she said makes sense. Mental power has a special attribute, and the energy overflow produced is 90% less than other types of energy. What do you think?" After Ding Dang finished speaking, Chu Yin Gang looked at Yang Tian proudly. Yang Tian considered for a moment. Under Chu Yin Gang's expectant gaze, he finally said helplessly, "All right." Seeing that Yang Tian agreed, Chu Yin Gang stood up happily. "Then I'll go back and prepare. When the time comes, we'll set off together." After saying that, Chu Yin Gang left Yang Tian's residence with a smile on her face. "Who's that woman? I've been in the academy for so many years. Why haven't I seen her before?" "I don't know. Could she be a new student?" "That's possible. But why did she come to the advanced student area?" "That's a private matter. We can't interfere. Let's go." Chu Yin Gang had just walked out of Yang Tian's villa when she was seen by two advanced students. They could not help but talk about it. After Chu Yin Gang left, Yang Tian recorded 2 videos. After he finished recording, Yang Tian looked at it and suddenly changed his mind. He immediately got Ding Dang to delete it. He had not even gone, and he already wanted to leave a will. It was not a mission that would definitely kill him. It was just a dangerous mission. This was an action that would dampen his spirit. Ever since he left Earth until now, he had encountered so many dangerous situations. Didn't he still survive? Yang Tian did not expect that he would do such a thing. He analyzed it and realized that it was because he was too free. Luckily, there was something that he needed to do soon. 3 days had passed since the last time he entered the Star Imperial Virtual Battle World. A large-scale reward event was about to begin. The reward for the event was a Star Warrior-level Beast Core. This kind of Beast Core was a limited edition existence outside. Other than money, one also needed special channels to buy it. Yang Tian had to get this Beast Core. Of course, this was somewhat difficult, although he was also a participant in the virtual world who loved special treatment. The little blue dragon once again waited beside the virtual login pod. Yang Tian entered the Star Imperial Virtual Battle World through the round virtual pod. Once he entered, Yang Tian received a notification from the auxiliary device. Sir, the event registration has begun. As of now, there are 32,271 people who have signed up for this reward event. Only about 1,000 people had signed up for the 500,000 Star Crystals reward event. This time, there were actually more than 30,000 people. There were still many star-level powerhouses in the entire universe. Sign up. Why else would I be here? Yang Tian said with a smile after the auxiliary device's notification. The auxiliary device said, "Yes, sir." Soon, the auxiliary device helped Yang Tian sign up and reminded Yang Tian, "Sir, the current number of people, including you, is 32,383. In such a short time, there were actually more than 100 people. It seemed that many people were like Yang Tian and would only enter this virtual world when the time came. How many people in this virtual world have received special treatment like me? Yang Tian asked after the auxiliary device reported the number of people. The auxiliary device replied, "I'm sorry. Sir, I can't tell you this." The place where Yang Tian appeared was the place where he exited the virtual battle world. It was outside the small town. After signing up, Yang Tian walked straight to the small town. "Yang Tian, you're finally here." Yang Tian had just walked to the entrance of the town when a familiar voice sounded. Then, a thin young man walked over. It was Zi Qinyangyu. The only person Yang Tian knew in this virtual world was Zi Qinyangyu. "Yang Tian, I've been waiting for you here for 3 days. You really don't have any interest in ordinary stellar crystal rewards," Zi Qinyangyu said with a smile as he walked in front of Yang Tian. Yang Tian felt very comfortable with Zi Qinyongyu's tone. This was how friends talk to each other. "It's not that I don't want to, it's just that I'm not allowed to participate." Yang Tian shrugged and smiled bitterly. As he spoke, Yang Tian habitually looked at his shoulder. The little blue dragon was not there. It would be great if the little blue dragon could also enter this virtual battle world. At that time, with the little blue dragon's strength, would he be able to receive special treatment? Yang Tian thought to himself, "What's wrong?" Zi Qinyangyu asked when he saw Yang Tian's absent-mindedness. "I have a companion outside. It's a stellar beast. I was thinking that it would be great if I could bring it into this world," Yang Tian said honestly. "Sure," Zi Qinyangyu said. "You need to purchase 2 stellar crystal chips. In the real world, you also need 2 sets of virtual equipment. After entering the virtual world, you only need to go through a simple authentication process. After the authentication, your pet beast will be able to fight alongside you just like in the real world." So it really worked. Yang Tian's eyes lit up when he heard that. If the event wasn't about to start, he would have immediately exited the virtual world at this moment. Zi Qinyangyu said, "A human's nervous system is different from an exotic beast's. If your pet beast isn't smart enough, not only will it not be able to help you in this virtual world, it will also cause trouble for you." Last time, you already had a preliminary look at this virtual world. You didn't see a single cultivator with a pet beast, right? That's the reason. Also, the Star Royal Virtual Battle Crystal Chip is outside. It's not something you can casually buy. After Zi Qinyangyu finished speaking, Yang Tian asked again, "In this virtual world, no one uses a pet beast?" "Of course not," Zi Qinyangyu said. "The Star Royal Virtual Battle World is open to the entire universe. There are many strange people in the universe. People have already brought their pet beasts in. When the event starts, you'll see for yourself. Since others could do it, why couldn't he? Moreover, the little blue dragon was very smart. Yang Tian planned to do this after completing the Academy's training program. He also wanted to let the little blue dragon experience what the virtual world was like. With a large-scale event, there were many cultivators entering the virtual world. While Yang Tian and Zichen Yangyu were talking, cultivators who logged into the virtual world kept appearing around them. The moment they appeared, they immediately walked towards the small town. The event's teleportation point is in the small town. Let's go there quickly. Seeing the two quickly passing by, Zichen Yangyu glanced at the small town and turned to Yang Tian and said. Yang Tian nodded and quickly walked toward the small town with Zichen Yangyu. Right? In reality, do you know that the entrance to the broken bubble space is about to open? While walking, Zichen Yangyu suddenly asked. Yang Tian couldn't help but be surprised. Zichen Yangyu already knew about this matter. It seems that the cultivators who entered the broken bubble space this time were only a small part of the Superstar Academy's people. I know. Yang Tian nodded and said, when the time comes, I will also go. What about you? Zichen Yangyu shook his head and said, I won't join in the fun. My elders don't allow it. It's too dangerous. You have to be careful. Thank you for your concern. Yang Tian patted Zichen Yangyu's shoulder and said with a smile. Chapter 359. Soon, the two of them enter the town. Compared to the last time, the number of people in the town had increased significantly. The tea shops on both sides of the street were filled with people. Yang Tian and Zichen Yangyu found a clean spot on the street and sat down. The virtual world was indeed different. The ground was so clean that there was not a speck of dust. After sitting down, Yang Tian turned to Zichen Yangyu and asked, What's the content of the reward event this time? Zichen Yangyu shook his head. Every time a large-scale event like this is announced at the last moment. However, the content of the event is different every time. The operation of this virtual world is quite ingenious. After saying that, Zichen Yangyu raised his hands and two unopened bottles of fruit juice appeared in his hands. He handed one of the bottles to Yang Tian. Yang Tian took it and opened the bottle cap with a bang. The two of them drank the fruit juice while waiting quietly. After about half an hour, the preparations for the event finally began. A teleportation platform with a diameter of more than 20 meters appeared in the center of the town. The cultivators who signed up for the event received a notification from their respective auxiliary devices and immediately entered the teleportation platform. Moreover, the process of the event would be publicly displayed. In other words, the cultivators who did not participate in the event could stay in the town, city, or other places and watch the entire event as if they were watching a 3D movie. If I had known earlier, I would not have accepted the title. My combat power. As soon as the auxiliary device notified them, someone cried out in grief. People like this probably signed up to watch the fun. They did not expect that the entire event would be displayed at the right time. Let's go. Once we arrive, we will know the content of the event. After receiving the notification, Yang Tian and Zichen Yangyu stood up. Zichen Yangyu said excitedly. Many of the cultivators who participated in the event knew that they would not be able to obtain any rewards in the end. However, they still participated with great enthusiasm. This was because the process was very exciting. After signing up, the cultivators in the town entered the teleportation platform in batches. This large-scale teleportation platform could teleport about 50 to 60 people each time. Yang Tian, Zichen, and Yangyu didn't crowd around. They waited until most of the people in the town had left before walking onto the teleportation platform together. The teleportation process was very simple. Just like in reality, a blue light flashed in front of his eyes, and when the light disappeared, he found himself in a different place. Sir, there are a total of 75,601 participants in this reward event. The first place winner will receive a stellar general level beast core. The second place winner will receive 50 million stellar crystals. The third place winner will receive 30 million stellar crystals. The 4th to 10th place winners will receive 10 million stellar crystals. The 11th to 100th place winners will receive 2 million stellar crystals. As soon as Yang Tian walked out of the large platform, the auxiliary device immediately notified him of the reward for this activity. Zichen Yangyu was surprised by the contents of the rewards. He said in a surprised tone, "The rewards for this event are for the 1st place to the 100th place. In the past, in many of these large-scale events, only the 1st place would be rewarded." Yang Tian glanced at the crowd. "I guess it's because there are too many people. There were more than 70,000 people. On average, each person spent 200,000 stellar crystals to register. The total value is more than 10 billion stellar crystals." When Yang Tian said this, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. This virtual world was too damn good at making money. It was even faster than robbing people. However, considering that this virtual world was facing the entire universe, it was understandable. Yang Tian and the others were now in a valley of a large mountain. They couldn't see the top of the mountain from where they were standing. This was because the top of the mountain was covered by clouds. The mountain was densely covered with trees, and there were no small paths leading up the mountain. The bottom of the valley was very flat, and the area was very large. It could accommodate 100,000 people without being crowded. When Yang Tian, Zichun, and Yang Yu were teleported here and walked off the platform, there were still many people behind them. About 10 minutes later, the blue light on the platform finally disappeared. Then, the platform became more and more transparent and finally disappeared. The auxiliary device notified again. The total number of people who registered is 75,601. The total number is 73,257. There were more than 2,000 people who didn't show up. They were most likely delayed by some matters in the real world. Rumble. When the teleportation portal disappeared, the ground began to shake violently, as if an earthquake had occurred. In the midst of the shaking, 4 caves with a diameter of more than 20 meters appeared on the steep mountain walls. After these caves appeared, the tremors stopped, and the auxiliary device prompted 4 caves, each leading to a different place. The structure is the same shape of a maze, and there are powerful exotic beasts inside. Charge out of the maze within the time limit, and you will pass. Killing exotic beasts will give you reward points based on the level of the exotic beast. At the same time, after charging out of the maze, the remaining time will be calculated as a percentage, multiplied by the reward points obtained in the maze. When this notification appeared, Yang Tian understood the content of this stage and how to obtain the most reward points. If he wanted to obtain the most reward points, not only did he have to kill more exotic beasts, he also had to charge out of the maze in the shortest time possible. For example, killing an exotic beast in the maze would give him 10,000 reward points. After charging out of the maze, there would still be 50% of the time left. Then, the final reward for this stage will be 5,000 points. Yang Tian, I'm not going with you. Let's go our separate ways. After the auxiliary device notified him, Zichen Yangyu saw that many people had scattered and were charging towards the 4 caves. He said to Yang Tian and turned around, heading towards the entrance on the right side of the mountain wall. Yang Tian understood Zichen Yangyu's intention. In this event, Zichen Yangyu did not want to receive any help from Yang Tian. Yang Tian smiled and ran towards the entrance on the left side of the cave. There were more than 70,000 people in total. The number of people entering each cave was estimated to be around 10,000 to 20,000. The number was not fixed because the selection was random. It all depended on one's thoughts. The reason why Yang Tian chose the left side was because he saw that there were fewer people entering that cave. In this stage, he would not be at a disadvantage if he was the last to move. After all, there would be fewer people fighting for exotic beasts in a cave with fewer people. As soon as he entered the cave, Yang Tian ran forward quickly. It looked like a naturally formed cave. There was a fishy smell in the air, and it was very humid. The ceiling of the cave was inlaid with shiny pearls, and the light was quite bright. Roar! Yang Tian had only run for a few dozen meters when he heard a howl coming from the front. Then there was a series of pong 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 sounds. The person at the front must have encountered an exotic beast. TSS, TSS, TSS. Hearing the sound, many people behind Yang Tian increased their speed and ran past Yang Tian, bringing with them the sound of the wind. Yang Tian was not in a hurry. He knew that in a maze like this, the person at the front might not be able to get the most reward points. Other than strength, sometimes it also depended on luck. Wasn't a maze and hunting exotic beasts a test of one's strength and luck? Yang Tian ran for another 50 meters. The space in front of him widened, and a huge space appeared. In this space, there were many small caves. The roars of exotic beasts and the sounds of fighting came from these small caves. When Yang Tian arrived, many people were standing in the spacious area, hesitating about what to do. Yang Tian glanced in front of him. Without any hesitation, he ran into a small cave on the left. Standing in the same place and hesitating was a waste of time. Chapter 360. As soon as he entered the small cave, Yang Tian did not stop at all. Instead, he ran forward along the curved cave. Roar! Bang! 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 Yang Tian walked for about a few hundred meters before he heard the sound of fighting ahead. There was a mutated beast ahead. Yang Tian immediately increased his speed. A few seconds later, a battle scene appeared before Yang Tian's eyes. This was a crossroad. A cultivator in red armor, without a helmet, was fighting with a fiery red mutated beast that looked like a crocodile. When Yang Tian saw this, he did not stop at all. He quickly rushed forward, passed by the cultivator in red armor, and slapped at the mutated beast that had just leaped up and climbed up the cave wall. Bang! Yang Tian's palm landed on the mutated beast's back. Under the furious gaze of the cultivator in red armor, Yang Tian's figure flashed and disappeared into the cave on the left. After entering such a maze, Yang Tian could not find any sense of direction. He could only use the stupid method. He had to walk through all the caves in the maze in the shortest amount of time. If he was lucky, he might be able to get out earlier. As soon as Yang Tian rushed into the cave on the left, he heard the notification from the auxiliary device. He had received 100 reward points. During this process, Yang Tian did not need to make any notes, because wherever he passed, the auxiliary device would draw a 3D map according to the shape of the cave. If he came across a crossroad on his way back, the auxiliary device would even show him the entrance that Yang Tian did not pass. The cave was full of twists and turns. After about 100 meters, he came to another crossroad. The two paths ahead were similar to the one that Yang Tian came from. They were shaped like a Y. Yang Tian did not stop at all. He continued to enter the cave on the left. This time, Yang Tian rushed forward for about 200 meters before he reached the end of the cave. It was a dead end. There was a circular space in the innermost part. As soon as Yang Tian arrived, he saw a black python coiled around its body. It was emitting a powerful aura. As soon as Yang Tian approached, the giant python stretched out its head and spat out a black gas at Yang Tian. This black gas was clearly poisonous. Yang Tian possessed origin power, so he wasn't afraid of this kind of poisonous gas. He continued to move forward rapidly and arrived in front of the giant python. He punched the giant python's head, and with a bang, the powerful force caused the python's head to change shape. After withdrawing his fist, Yang Tian shook his head. This poisonous gas was very powerful. After it invaded Yang Tian's body, it made him a little confused. However, the origin power in his body quickly neutralized the poison that had invaded his body. The confusion only lasted for a second or two. After Yang Tian woke up, he glanced at the black python's corpse and immediately turned back. At this time, the auxiliary device prompted Yang Tian to get 1,000 reward points, and he got a total of 1,100 reward points. Yang Tian quickly returned to the Y-shaped intersection and headed towards the cave on the right. Just like that, in this cave maze, Yang Tian kept moving forward. During this process, the exotic beasts that Yang Tian encountered were all killed by him with one punch. Almost no exotic beast could withstand his attack. If he encountered something like before, when others were fighting with exotic beasts and blocked his way, Yang Tian would also show his spirit of being a hero and help others get rid of the exotic beasts while he was at it. Of course, this would cause many people to be dissatisfied, but the reality was so cruel. Without powerful strength, you can't blame others for stealing. Yang Tian wasn't the only one who did this. To get out of such a maze of caves, other than searching all the caves at a fast speed like Yang Tian, you can only rely on precise calculation ability to calculate. The auxiliary device did have this calculation ability, but in such an activity, its calculation ability was prohibited. At most, it could help its owner record the route and draw a three-dimensional map. Yang Tian passed through one cave after another at an average speed of 2 minutes. About an hour later, Yang Tian's reward points had accumulated to more than 50,000 points. At this time, there were about 3 hours before the end of this stage. A quarter of the time had passed. In other words, if Yang Tian went out now, he would have 75% of the 50,000 reward points left. In this event, there was also timely ranking data. After about an hour of sprinting, Yang Tian stopped and used the support device to open the leaderboard. To Yang Tian's surprise, many cultivators had already gone out. There were already thousands of people on the ranking. The first place was a guy called Invincible Star with a reward of 53,121 points. After glancing at the ranking, Yang Tian rested for a short while and continued to move forward at high speed. Another hour later, Yang Tian entered another dead end. At the end of this cave was a cave about 20 meters in diameter. In this cave, there was a tall guard wearing black armor and holding a large saber in his hand. A stellar domain lord. When Yang Tian saw the burly man in black armor, he was rather surprised. This was the first human guard he had encountered in the cave. In the previous 2 hours, he had only encountered mutated beasts. Moreover, none of the mutated beasts were at the stellar domain lord level. If he killed the burly man in black armor, Yang Tian would be able to obtain 100,000 reward points. His total reward points would be more than 150,000. At this time, almost half of the time had passed. Yang Tian had a premonition that he was about to leave this cave maze. If he went out now, the reward points he would obtain would be about 55% of the 50,000 reward points. It would be difficult to even enter the top 100. If he killed the burly man in black armor, he would obtain half of the 150,000 reward points. With more than 70,000 reward points, he would be able to enter the first place after going out. While Yang Tian was calculating rapidly, he did not stop and rush towards the burly man in black armor. From the moment Yang Tian saw the burly man in black armor to the moment he appeared in front of the burly man in black armor, it was only a blink of an eye. Roar! The burly man in black armor reacted very quickly. As soon as Yang Tian approached him, he held a saber with both hands and slashed at Yang Tian. This slash carried a strong saber aura. Just as Yang Tian was about to punch out, he felt a powerful force coming from above his head. He had no choice but to withdraw his fist and dodge to the side. Pong! The burly man in black armor slashed the ground with his saber, making a loud noise. The stones on the ground were like bullets, sputtering in all directions at an extremely high speed. At the same time, the cave also shook, and the solid cave walls were shaken to the point that stones fell off. If this powerful slash were to happen a few more times, the cave would probably collapse. The sputtering stones hit the shield formed by Yang Tian's spirit power and bounced off, making a burst of puff, 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 puff sound. Before the rain of stones, formed by the burly man in black armor dissipated, he quickly raised his saber again and slashed at Yang Tian. Yang Tian dodged a few meters away. It seemed that the burly man in black armor's hand could not reach Yang Tian. However, Yang Tian quickly leaned back. With a puff sound, a powerful saber aura swept past Yang Tian's chest and slashed at the cave wall behind Yang Tian. Chapter 361. Boom! The blade aura generated by the man in black armor shattered a large part of the cave wall. This was too passive. Yang Tian raised his hand, and a long red blade appeared in his hand. This was the first time Yang Tian used a blade in this world. The blade that the virtual world had created for Yang Tian was exactly the same as 15. As soon as the blade appeared in Yang Tian's hand, Yang Tian slashed. A red wind blade rushed out from the blade. Since they were so close to each other, the red wind blade slashed at the man in black armor. Yang Tian's blade aura was also made of force. However, when the blade aura collided with the man in black armor, it only made a bang sound. The man in black armor took a few steps back, and he was completely fine. F***CK. Yang Tian couldn't help but curse. Taking advantage of the moment when the man in black armor had just stabilized himself, he quickly rushed over. Seeing Yang Tian appear in front of him in an instant and stab at him, the man in black armor didn't dodge. Instead, he let Yang Tian stab at his chest and slashed at Yang Tian with his blade. It seemed that the man in black armor was quite confident in his black armor. He was confident that his black armor could block Yang Tian's attack. If Yang Tian didn't withdraw his blade, he would definitely be hit by the man in black armor. The man in black armor's eyes lit up with excitement, and he showed a strong desire to fight. Yang Tian didn't want to die together with the man in black armor. He suddenly stomped on the ground and dodged to the side. Boom! The man in black armor's powerful blade slashed at the ground again. Yang Tian waved his blade a few times and slapped away a few stones that were sputtering at high speed. Then, he took a few steps back. Ha ha! After the rain of stones, the man in black armor didn't immediately attack Yang Tian. Instead, he laughed. Yang Tian's eyebrows furrowed as he looked at the black-armored man's arrogant laughter. That was because he could detect a hint of excitement in his laughter. The characters created in this virtual world could actually have such realistic emotions. Yang Tian couldn't help but recall the scene of him killing that red Tyrannosaurus Rex a few days ago. That Tyrannosaurus Rex was at the Stellar Region Lord Realm as well, but its cries hadn't contained such lifelike emotions. You weren't created by the system, Yang Tian suddenly said as he looked at the black-armored man. Yang Tian's words were a test. The burly man in black armor said with a smile, "Your intuition is really accurate. If it was an exotic beast simulated by the system, you would have killed it long ago." "Who are you?" Yang Tian asked again. The black-armored man said, "I'm the designer of this virtual combat world. You can call me Imperial Star." Yang Tian smiled bitterly. "Why did you come looking for me?" Yang Tian's words meant that there were more than 70,000 cultivators participating in this reward event. So why did Imperial Star come looking for him? Yang Tian felt that this person's appearance seemed to be deliberately targeting him. Imperial Star said, "Because I'm very interested in you. You're the first cultivator with such a powerful strength attribute since the virtual combat world was opened." Yang Tian waved his blade. "So, you directly entered this virtual combat world to test me." Imperial Star nodded. "You can say that. Actually, you can also treat me as an experienced sir. However, I'm a superclass cultivator in the real world, so the Imperial Star system gave me a very high energy attribute. Also, the black armor I'm wearing is based on the data of the armor in the real world. Although your strength attribute is powerful, it'll still be very difficult for you to destroy my armor." After Imperial Star finished speaking, Yang Tian frowned and said, "What you're doing is very unfair." Ha ha ha. As soon as Yang Tian's voice fell, Imperial Star couldn't help but laugh. Yang Tian was even more unhappy. Imperial Star saw that Yang Tian wasn't speaking, so he stopped laughing and said, "If you can defeat me, I'll give you 1,000,000 reward points. How about it?" "Really?" Yang Tian's eyes widened when he heard this. Yang Tian was actually very excited to be able to fight a superclass cultivator. However, if he were to be killed by Imperial Star, it would probably affect his training in the next few days. So, he still wanted some benefits. This was great. 1,000,000 reward points. Even if Yang Tian delayed for another hour, 25% of the 1,000,000 reward points would still be more than 200,000 reward points. Seeing Yang Tian's excited expression, Imperial Star guessed what Yang Tian was thinking and couldn't help but laugh. It's not that easy for you to get 1,000,000 reward points. My combat strength in this virtual world is at least a level higher than yours. Of course, the virtual world couldn't reflect the combat strength in the real world. This was because Imperial Star's virtual world had a combat strength range setting. This was, of course, to take care of cultivators with low combat strength in the real world. After all, this was a virtual world with entertainment and money as its essence. There's not much time left. Hurry up, Imperial Star said to Yang Tian with a smile after he finished speaking. Yang Tian nodded. The two of them held their blades and slowly retreated. The space in this cave wasn't big. If they fought, the range of movement would be very small. Yang Tian glanced at the space in the cave. Suddenly, his body moved and rushed toward Imperial Star. The distance between the two was only about 10 meters. Yang Tian's speed was very fast. In an instant, he appeared in front of Imperial Star and slashed his blade toward Imperial Star's neck. Imperial Star's armor had a very strong defense, so he could only attack the parts of his body that were exposed outside the armor. Facing Yang Tian's attack, Imperial Star quickly raised his blade and wanted to block Yang Tian's attack. Then, Imperial Star was a superstar in the real world. He had a lot of combat experience. In that instant, his mind was filled with the next move after blocking Yang Tian's attack. However, Yang Tian suddenly retracted his saber midway and stabbed again. In that instant, Imperial Star's blade missed, and Yang Tian's blade stabbed into his chest. Pung, a loud sound. Imperial Star was hit by a strong impact and couldn't help but retreat. Yang Tian took advantage of this opportunity. He shook the blade in his hand and stabbed toward Imperial Star's body again. Imperial Star looked at the red blade coming toward him. For a moment, he didn't know where the blade would land on his body. His rich combat experience allowed him to immediately react. He spun his body reflexively and swung his blade at the same time. This strike dissolved Yang Tian's attack. Yang Tian had no choice but to dodge to the side. Phew! After the two separated, Yang Tian couldn't help but let out a long breath. The series of actions just now had consumed a lot of energy. This was also because Yang Tian was so excited that he was highly focused. Yang Tian and Zhu Wei had sparred for 3 days and 3 nights. It wasn't a waste of time. At least, it made up for the difference in combat experience. Chapter 362. Suddenly, Yu Xing yelled and waved his long sword a few times as he rushed toward Yang Tian. Again, before he even arrived, the fierce sword chi had already arrived. There were a total of 8 sword chi, and they formed a closed net of light as they rushed toward Yang Tian. In this narrow space, it was very difficult to dodge this net-like saber chi. Whoosh! Even the ground and the surrounding stone walls were being cut by the 8 sword chi. The speed of the attack was fast and fierce. Yu Xing yelled, trying to distract Yang Tian so that he could unleash the 8 sword chi. But Yang Tian was very calm. The 8 sword chi combined together. Although they were very dense, there were still gaps. From the experience that he had learned from Zhu Wei, Yang Tian was able to see the gaps. Almost instinctively, Yang Tian jumped up and kicked off the stone wall behind him, and his body passed through the net of sword chi. Boom. At the same time, a loud sound came from behind Yang Tian. The sword chi that Yu Xing unleashed hit the stone wall behind Yang Tian, and it blasted a huge hole in the stone wall. After the loud sound, a few large rocks from the ceiling fell down. This was also in the virtual world. If this were the real world, the cave would have collapsed long ago. At this time, Yang Tian had already reached in front of Yu Xing. Yang Tian waved his red saber and pierced it towards Yu Xing, emitting a sharp whistling sound. Facing the sword in front of him, Yu Xing had a confident smile on his face as he calmly retreated. However, all of a sudden, dozens of saber chi shot out from the tip of the red saber. Bang! 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 Yu Xing had a strong black armor on him, and he could have ignored the sword chi, but he had to use his sword to block it. He kept on waving the sword in his hand, forming an impenetrable sword shadow. At this time, Yuxing was very excited and full of fighting spirit. While Yuxing was blocking the dozens of sword chi that Yang Tian sent out, Yang Tian was already very close to Yuxing suddenly. The sword stopped moving and went straight for Yuxing's throat. The sword didn't seem to be very fast. Yuxing squinted his eyes. He was confident that he could dodge it, so he raised his sword to block. At this time, Yang Tian quickly retreated. Next, Yuxing felt pain in his throat and heard a sound coming from his throat. He was hit. Yuxing's eyes opened wide, and he was very shocked. In the virtual world, this wasn't a serious injury. Yuxing immediately wanted to counterattack, but suddenly his whole body felt numb. In this short period of time, Yang Tian's origin power had already invaded his body, causing a huge impact on his body. "I've lost." Bam! As Yuxing spoke, he let out a long breath and threw down the blade in his hand. The heavy black blade fell to the ground and shook the ground. Yang Tian couldn't help but laugh excitedly. After spending so much effort, he finally defeated Yuxing. This was 1,000,000 reward points. The battle just now had only taken a few minutes. If he went out now, his reward points would be at least 600,000 to 700,000. It was more than 10 times more than the current first place. But obviously, Yuxing didn't want Yang Tian to go out so quickly. Seeing Yang Tian's happy face, Yuxing sat on the ground and used his hand to cover the wound on his neck. After a few seconds, when Yuxing removed his hand, he could see that the big hole on his neck had disappeared. Yang Tian didn't find it strange. This world was created by Yuxing. He was the god of this world. He could do anything. After sitting down, Yuxing patted the ground next to him and smiled at Yang Tian. "Come and chat with me. If you go out now, you'll get too many reward points. People will be suspicious." "All right." Yang Tian nodded and sat down next to Yuxing. "How did you do it just now?" Yuxing asked curiously as he turned his head and looked at Yang Tian sitting next to him. In fact, even if Yang Tian didn't say it, Yuxing could guess it. Last time, he saw Yang Tian's 3 powers and knew that Yang Tian had mind power. Although he knew that the attack just now had something to do with Yang Tian's mind power, he didn't know the details. Yang Tian smiled. "Wait until you exit this virtual world and watch the battle just now. Won't you understand?" Yuxing shook his head. Obviously, he wanted Yang Tian to say it himself. Now that the 1,000,000 reward points hadn't arrived yet, Yang Tian naturally had to listen. He smiled and said, "Just now I used my mind power to wrap around a blade aura and let it charge at you very slowly. When you thought the blade aura was gone, it suddenly sped up." While Yang Tian was talking, Yuxing closed his eyes and recalled the situation just now. After a while, Yuxing opened his eyes and nodded, saying, "Where did you train your power? I'm really envious of you. When you reach my level, no one in the universe will dare to mess with you except for those terrifyingly strong guys." Yang Tian smiled. "It's all good luck. This is the 1,000,000 reward points." At this time, Yang Tian was a little anxious. Yuxing didn't respond to Yang Tian's last sentence. Instead, he said, "If this was in reality, with your current level, you wouldn't be able to kill me. Just now, I didn't even use my power to protect myself." Is he going to go back on his word? Yang Tian heard Yuxing's words and was a little worried. He thought to himself, is this guy saying this because he's not convinced? After Yuxing finished speaking, he stood up, pointed to the outside path. "Go out of this passage and turn your back to the passage you came from. Then turn left, then turn right." After saying that, Yuxing's figure disappeared. "Sir, you've received 1,000,000 reward points." Immediately after, the auxiliary device also prompted Yang Tian. Fortunately, Yuxing was a man of his words. As soon as he left, the 1,000,000 reward points were received. The excited Yang Tian couldn't help but hum a song as he walked out of the cave. At this time, he was no longer in a hurry. Now that only 2 hours had passed, even if he spent another 5% of the time out, in the end, he would still have nearly 500,000 reward points. After leaving the cave, Yang Tian thought about it and moved forward according to Yuxing's instructions. But an hour and a half later, When Yang Tian walked to the end and saw the teleportation disc in front of him, he couldn't help but point to the sky and shouted, "Despicable, despicable!" It turned out that Yang Tian was deceived by Yuxing. The path that Yuxing pointed out to Yang Tian made Yang Tian walk twice the distance. This also caused Yang Tian to spend almost twice the amount of time. In this more than an hour, Yang Tian's reward points also accumulated to more than 3 million. After Yang Tian finished cursing, he immediately stepped on the teleportation disc. When the blue light in front of him disappeared, Yang Tian found himself under a stone platform. At this time, the auxiliary device prompted Yang Tian, "Sir, after calculation, you have received 175,379 reward points in the first pass." This was more than half of Yang Tian's previous expectations. Although it was only more than 170,000 points, Yang Tian still firmly ranked first. Chapter 363. Those with less than 10,000 reward points will be eliminated. There are 13,220 people remaining. As soon as the first stage ended, Yang Tian's auxiliary device issued a notification. Next, it was the second stage. After being teleported out of the cave maze in the first stage, Yang Tian, like the others, appeared below a tall stone platform. The shape of this stone platform looked like a large pyramid. It was built with gray-white rocks. From the bottom to the top, there were stone steps that extended all the way to the platform at the top. The second stage had not started yet. Many people wanted to climb up the stone platform to take a look at the platform at the top. However, they were blocked by an invisible force. Yang Tian also tried. No matter how much strength he used, he could not go up. Therefore, the cultivators who came out of the first stage could only wait quietly. About half an hour after Yang Tian came out, the first stage of the reward event ended. After the auxiliary device announced the number of people who passed the first stage, it immediately announced the start of the second stage. Rumble. As soon as the notification ended, the huge pyramid in front of Yang Tian and the others began to change shape. Moreover, it was rising rapidly. The ground trembled nonstop, producing a strong sound of friction. A few minutes later, the stone platform in front of Yang Tian and the others, which was originally pyramid-shaped, had risen to a height where no one could see the top. This was because the top had been covered by white clouds. The place that the stone platform originally occupied had doubled in size. It was originally in the shape of a pyramid, but it had become a cylindrical building with square potholes on the surface and a small head at the bottom. "Sir, next, you will need to climb to the top with your bare hands. The virtual world will block the energy of all experiencers." Wasn't this an extreme challenge? When Yang Tian heard the auxiliary device's notification, he could not help but open his eyes wide. He thought of an activity on Earth, which was barehanded rock climbing. This was an extreme challenge. It might be more difficult to climb up this cylindrical building. This was because the potholes on the top were messy and irregular. Some places were densely packed, while others were 3 to 4 meters apart. If one could not use powerful strength, it would be more difficult to climb up with just the strength of one's physical body. Furthermore, this cylindrical structure would change every once in a while. Perhaps the hole in his hand would disappear in the next moment. During this process, if one's luck was bad, no matter how strong one's combat strength was, one would only be eliminated. Although this was a virtual world, it was extremely realistic. It felt exactly the same as the real world. Therefore, in addition to testing the cultivators' physical coordination, this stage also tested their mental fortitude. This strange pillar-shaped building was at least several thousand meters tall. If one fell from it and hit the ground, it would be very painful. It would be even more painful than being killed by strange beasts. Because cultivators had strong physiques, they wouldn't lose consciousness after falling to the ground like ordinary people. As soon as the second stage was explained, hundreds of people gave up. There were still 12,528 participants left. After that, every time a person failed, the support device would prompt them. The reward points for this level were awarded based on the time taken to complete it. The earlier one reached the top, the more reward points they would receive. The countdown began. When the support device announced the start, more than 10,000 people rushed toward this strange man-made building with small feet and a big head. The holes at the bottom were denser and easier to climb. The higher one went, the harder it was to climb. After reaching a certain height, if one looked down, they would find that their bodies were floating. Yang Tian followed the crowd and rushed toward the pillar-shaped building. He found that he could not mobilize the energy in his body. He couldn't even use his mental power. Next, he could only rely on his physical strength. In reality, cultivators who often participated in battles or liked extreme survival activities like this would have an advantage in this aspect. The rule was to use bare hands. Of course, weapons could not be used. The armor on the body would also disappear. Yang Tian followed the crowd and rushed to the pillar-shaped building. He grabbed the holes on the top and quickly climbed up. At first, there were a lot of people. They were practically huddled together, making it extremely crowded. During this process, many people played tricks. They even stepped on the heads of others to climb up. The people below were unconvinced and dragged the legs of the people above. Then, the two people fell together. They only climbed for about 10 meters. However, as soon as the two people touched the ground and got up and were about to continue, they turned into a red light and disappeared in a flash. At the same time, everyone's support devices would prompt them to see how many people were left. Was this considered elimination? Many people were shocked when they saw this. At first, they thought that they would only be eliminated if they fell to their deaths. Once such a situation occurred, everyone became well-behaved and even showed signs of modesty to each other. After all, everyone wanted to climb to the top. They usually had no grudges. Why would they make things difficult for others at this time? When he was still in high school on Earth, Yang Tian had watched extreme challenge videos in the school's reference room. He knew what to do at this time. At this time, he tried not to think about how high he had climbed and how high he was to reach the top. He also did not look down. Instead, he focused his attention on climbing. As he kept climbing, the speed of the airflow became faster and faster. Yang Tian's surroundings became quieter and quieter. Soon, Yang Tian climbed to a height of 1,000 meters from the ground. From time to time, he could hear screams coming from below. This was the sound of a cultivator who accidentally fell from the sky, unable to control himself as he fell from the sky. Then a bang sound came from the ground. This sound of falling to the ground was unavoidably heart-wrenching. It was too painful. From time to time, people fell above Yang Tian's head. At this time, about an hour had passed since the start of this stage. Rumble! Suddenly, the column-shaped building Yang Tian was climbing began to move, making a rumbling sound. When Yang Tian clung onto the square-shaped hole, a square-shaped rock was squeezing outwards. Very soon, the rock came into contact with his fingers and started pushing his fingers outwards. Ah! 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 When the column-shaped building moved, the screams that had stopped for a while sounded again. Many people fell down. Yang Tian ignored the screams of others. At this critical moment, he tried to keep his mind calm and pay attention to the changes in the stones around him. When his fingers were about to be squeezed out and his feet had lost support, Yang Tian finally saw a square stone next to him slowly retracting. Yang Tian seized this opportunity. He stretched out his right hand and used 3 fingers to grab the edge of the sunken hole. He began to shift his center of gravity to the right. However, during this process, the stone that had shrunk back by about 3 centimeters suddenly squeezed out again. Phew! At this critical moment, Yang Tian let out a long breath. He still shifted his center of gravity to his right hand. This was because the hole he was climbing on was about to flatten out. Chapter 364. Shifting his center of gravity, Yang Tian's body was supported by 3 fingers. What made Yang Tian even more anxious was that there were no new potholes forming within a radius of 4 to 5 meters. The surface was extremely smooth. Was this the end? Yang Tian was very unwilling. No matter how good a person's mental fortitude was At this point, it was inevitable for them to panic. Ka ka ka. At this moment, Yang Tian could hear the sound of his fingernails being squeezed out. Although it was the final moment, Yang Tian still did not give up. His two eyes kept moving around to see if there were any new potholes forming around him. In a wide space, Yu Xing was wearing a loose black robe. He crossed his arms and looked at the situation Yang Tian was facing in the virtual world. In fact, the setting of the second stage was fair to every cultivator. At the crucial moment, there would always be a chance for survival. It depended on whether the cultivator could persevere until the final moment. Many people gave up when they were in danger, thinking that they were going to die. However, they did not know that at the final moment, there would be a chance for survival. Yu Xing was very interested in Yang Tian. That was why he had the virtual world bring up Yang Tian's image to watch. What made Yu Xing satisfied was that the moment the image appeared, he saw such an exciting scene. Persevere. Young man, don't give up. Seeing Yang Tian's current situation, Yu Xing could not help but feel nervous as he muttered. Soon, Yu Xing shifted his gaze to Yang Tian's eyes. As his fingers were being squeezed out bit by bit, Yang Tian's eyes could not help but reveal a nervous expression. It could also be seen that Yang Tian's cheeks were swollen. It was obvious that he was gritting his teeth hard. This was a unique action of humans. When they were nervous or angry, they would usually have this kind of facial expression. I'm going to fall all. Suddenly, Imperial Star let out a nervous cry and closed his eyes. After a second or two, when Yu Xing opened his eyes and saw the situation in the image, he could not help but smile. It turned out that Yang Tian had already grasped the fleeting opportunity to tide over the crisis before him. If the image was rewound, it could be seen that when two of Yang Tian's 3 fingers were squeezed out and the last finger was about to slide down, a square rock on the left side of Yang Tian's body quickly retracted. When this hole appeared, Yang Tian's finger was completely squeezed out. In that instant, Yang Tian made a circle in the air and extended his right hand into the hole as he fell. He almost fell down. At this moment, Yang Tian could be seen pouting as he heaved a sigh of relief. My lord, I detected an abnormal energy fluctuation. At that moment, the virtual world. Abnormal energy fluctuation? Find it and let's find it. Yu Xing's view of heaven of earth was of heaven, was of reality of heaven, was of life of heaven. The appearance of abnormal energy fluctuations meant that something was out of his control. My lord, my lord. The virtual world quickly found the source of the abnormal energy fluctuation. What surprised Yu Xing was that the abnormal energy fluctuation actually came from Yang Tian. Yu Xing looked at Yang Tian, who was continuously climbing. After thinking for a while, he said with a smile, later, let's arrange a certain death situation for him and see what he can do. The danger that Yang Tian encountered was extremely rare among the cultivators who participated in this event. Most of them were smoothly climbing up. After going through that dangerous situation, Yang Tian felt that his speed had increased a lot. At that moment, his mind was still filled with the last impression of that time. In that instant, he felt his body heat up as if a powerful energy was about to appear. This feeling only lasted for a moment and disappeared as soon as the danger was averted. As they went higher and higher, the slope of the cylindrical building became more and more difficult to climb. More and more people fell down and screamed from time to time. It was unknown how many people would reach the top of this cylindrical building in the end. Rumble, suddenly, the huge pillar-shaped building started shaking again. The last time it shook, Yang Tian almost fell down. When this huge cylindrical building shook again, he couldn't help but grit his teeth. At that moment, not only Yang Tian, but everyone who was climbing also became nervous. Some of them even cursed loudly. Soon, Yang Tian also wanted to curse the designer of this stage, because the same situation as before appeared. First, Yang Tian's feet were squeezed out. Yang Tian, who was hanging in the air, looked around and found that there was not a single hole. Previously, when this situation occurred, a hole appeared, giving Yang Tian a chance to survive. But this time, it was simply forcing Yang Tian to his death. What Yang Tian didn't know was that the reason for this situation was that Yu Xing ordered the virtual world system to create a certain death situation for Yang Tian. Yu Xing obviously did this to see if there would be any abnormal energy fluctuations on Yang Tian's body again. For him, this was the most important thing. If the abnormal energy fluctuations on Yang Tian's body did not appear, or if it appeared again, it would not help Yang Tian. Whether Yang Tian failed or not, Yu Xing didn't need to consider. The stone inside the hole where Yang Tian's hands were clasped moved at different speeds. The right-hand side was faster and soon became flat, pushing Yang Tian's right hand out. But the square stone inside the left hand was moving out little by little. The place where Yang Tian was now was slanted a little more than the place where he was in the previous crisis. If Yang Tian fell vertically from this position after landing on the ground, he would be at least 10 meters away from the bottom of the cylindrical building. When Yang Tian only had 2 fingers left on the edge of the stone pit, he already knew that the situation this time was a certain death situation. At this time, even if there were holes around him that he could use to climb up, it would be too late. F***CK. Facing this situation, Yang Tian couldn't help but roar, venting his dissatisfaction. Yang Tian already faintly felt that this certain death situation seemed to be specially designed for him. If he only relied on his physical strength, it would be impossible to hold on. After realizing the situation, Yang Tian was incomparably angry. Anger rose in his heart, and at this moment of extreme crisis, Yang Tian felt his whole body heat up. This time, the feeling was very clear. Not only did he feel his body temperature increase, but he also clearly felt that his body was undergoing changes. First of all, the skin on his body was wrinkling at an extremely fast speed. The nails on his hands and feet were also growing at an extremely fast speed, and 2 horns were growing on his head. Yang Tian was too familiar with this situation. Wasn't this just a transformation? He didn't expect that in this virtual world, he could actually transform. Yu Xing had been paying attention to Yang Tian. Seeing the changes on Yang Tian's body, he was very shocked. He wasn't shocked by the changes on Yang Tian's body, but by Yang Tian's transformation, which violated the rules he set. What did this mean? That was, the virtual world he controlled was already showing signs of breaking away from his control. Chapter 365. Chi. In a very short time, Yang Tian's hands and feet had all turned into dragon claws. The moment he fell, Yang Tian stretched out his hands, which had turned into dragon claws, and easily pierced into the grayish-white stone structure. In this stage, if one carried a weapon with the sharpness of the weapon, it would be able to carve a hole in the stone, and all the cultivators would be able to climb smoothly. Now that Yang Tian had a weapon, this stage was no longer difficult for him. Yang Tian no longer cared about the hole. He used his hands and feet to climb the steep stone pillars quickly, as if he was walking on flat ground. The sharp claws on his hands and feet were 3 centimeters long, and they could easily pierce into the stone. Ha ha ha. In the process of rushing forward, Yang Tian was extremely carefree, and he couldn't help but laugh loudly. Yang Tian's laughter traveled far. It was especially ear-piercing to the cultivators who were clenching their teeth and climbing. Yang Tian's vigorous figure flitted past the cultivators one by one. Seeing that someone had passed through in such a manner, some of the cultivators couldn't help but be stunned. Their limbs were in a mess, and they directly fell down. Imperial Star frowned when it saw the display on the surveillance screen. At the same time, Imperial Star's virtual world system once again received many complaints from cultivators. One had to know that this reward event was broadcasted live. When many cultivators saw Yang Tian's transformation, their first thought was that Yang Tian had cheated. Either that, or the virtual world system had given Yang Tian preferential treatment. It wasn't strange for cultivators to transform. After reaching the star grade, through special cultivation, one could control a certain part of their body to transform. In this reward event, Yang Tian wasn't the only cultivator who could transform, right? If so, why was Yang Tian the only one who could transform, and why couldn't the others? The first possibility was that Yang Tian had cheated. This was something that the cultivators could still accept. If it was the second possibility, since this virtual world had lost all fairness, what else was there to play? One had to know that staying in this virtual world for a day would cost 100,000 star crystals. If these star crystals were given to ordinary humans, they would be able to live a comfortable life for the rest of their lives. At the same time, the second possibility was that they had violated the Universe Business Treaty and would be severely punished. Imperial Star was the designer and operator of this system, so he naturally understood this logic. If he was a pure businessman, he would have immediately excluded Yang Tian from the virtual world. Then, they would release a statement saying that Yang Tian had exploited a loophole in the system. However, Yu Xing was a cultivator. He urgently wanted to know what happened to Yang Tian. Logically speaking, everything in the virtual world, including people and objects, was simulated. Without the permission of the system, this kind of situation would never happen. Yu Xing was a super-class warrior and had experienced many things. He was extremely calm right now. After thinking for a short while, he said, "Check and see what happened." Yes. The Virtual World Systems Management Program immediately replied. In this spacious space, the one who had been talking to Yu Xing directly was actually the management program of the Virtual World System. The management program was also a highly intelligent program with independent thinking ability. Its function was to communicate between Yu Xing and the main program of the virtual world. However, the one who created Yu Xing's virtual world was another program, which was the main program. Its intelligence was actually not as high as the management programs. However, the calculation ability of this program was unparalleled. It could be said that it was the program with the fastest calculation ability in the universe. Here, it was a program, not a hardware system. On Earth, everyone knew that the calculation speed of a computer system mainly depended on the hardware system. However, in the technologically advanced universe, it was different. The calculation speed depended on the software program. The main program that created Yu Xing's virtual world was not intelligent enough. It was extremely difficult for Yu Xing to communicate with it. Therefore, there was an artificial intelligence program that was sandwiched between him and the main program with the fastest calculation speed. This was an extremely strange phenomenon. A program with fast calculation speed might not necessarily have independent thinking ability, which meant that it did not have intelligence. And a program with intelligence might not necessarily have the fastest calculation speed. In a universe, some virtual world systems, as well as some large-scale based control systems, were all constructed in this way. During the process of the management program's inquiry, Yu Xing was actually very worried. He was worried that something had really happened to the system. If that was really the case, he would very likely lose a golden goose that laid eggs. Yu Xing was a cultivator, and, at the same time, he was also an artificial intelligence program enthusiast. The core program of Yu Xing's virtual world was written by him through the management program. However, during this process, he also used an unfamiliar and complicated program segment. Imperial Star didn't know much about this section of the program, but after adding it into the program he wrote, it produced unexpected results. This result was that it could identify and simulate the power of cultivators and reflect it very realistically. However, other virtual worlds could not do this. Therefore, Yu Xing's virtual world was created. This system allowed Yu Xing to obtain a huge amount of wealth and gave him sufficient resources to increase his cultivation level. With a huge amount of wealth, Yu Xing also established a powerful force. In addition to wealth, this system could also help him obtain information about cultivators' cultivation, power, and so on. Look, what's going on? He can actually transform. Then I'll give it a try. It's not working. That person must be cheating. Why can he transform, but I can't? Seeing Yang Tian pass by them, some people muttered to themselves. They wanted to transform, but they could not do it like Yang Tian. Many of the cultivators who participated in this stage could not help but feel angry. Yang Tian climbed up the ladder, wanting to obtain first place. However, he did not know that Yu Xing's virtual world had already given birth to a huge storm that could destroy this world because of his transformation. What was the truth? The one who wanted to know the most was not Yang Tian, nor was it the cultivators who came to this virtual world. Instead, it was Yu Xing, the owner of this virtual world. Imperial Star appeared calm on the surface, but he was extremely anxious on the inside. After a full 3 minutes, the voice of the management program rang out. "Sir, the main program has actually produced elementary intelligence. It is somewhat dissatisfied with your actions, so it actually went against my will." Before the management program could finish, Yu Xing said in a deep voice. Yu Xing's voice was filled with anger. In Yu Xing's mind, the main program's actions were the same as betraying him. "Master, that's not entirely true." After Yu Xing finished speaking, the management program said the main program did not give Xiao Long the transformation data. It was the result of a sudden change in Xiao Long's body data. The main program did not stop this process. Chapter 366. His body's data suddenly changed. This is impossible. As soon as the management program finished speaking, Yu Xing raised his hand and waved it forcefully. He frowned and said, "It's just a data link. It's just a string of numbers. How could it change?" Yu Xing could not understand the situation. One had to know that the bodies of the cultivators in the virtual combat world were actually digital tools. They were tools that were controlled by their brains in the real world. These digital tools existed in the virtual world, just like a knife, a cup, or a rock in the real world. They were lifeless objects. What happened to Yang Tian was as absurd as these lifeless objects suddenly coming alive and becoming living beings. After Yu Xing finished speaking, the auxiliary device did not say anything. For Yu Xing, this was the most important thing, and he had to figure it out. However, the situation in the virtual world also had to be dealt with quickly. Change the material structure of the test body. Turn it into a metal structure. Hardness. Use the data of the hardest alloy as reference. Imperial Star thought for a moment and issued an order to the management program. "Yes, sir." The AI management program responded and began to send Yu Xing's order to the main program in the virtual world. At this time, more than 10 minutes had passed since Yang Tian transformed. Yang Tian had already climbed to the middle of the pillar-shaped building. With his current speed, he would reach the top in half an hour at most. Without a doubt, Yang Tian was also climbing the highest. The cultivator who climbed the highest below him was also hundreds of meters away from him. Yang Tian knew that if there were no accidents, he would definitely take first place in this stage. Rumble! All of a sudden, the pillar-shaped building shook again and began to change. This time, the change was so great that it shocked everyone, because the entire building that was made of stone suddenly turned into a very hard and smooth metal material. Crack, the speed of the material change was extremely fast. It was almost completed in an instant. When Yang Tian reached out with his claws and was about to stab into a square stone, there was a sound of collision. Only a shallow mark was left on the metal piece that was hit by his claws. As for Yang Tian's body, it was bounced back by the rebounding force and fell down. F***CK. Yang Tian didn't expect something like this to happen. He screamed and reached out with his claws, hooking onto one of the holes. Ha. Yang Tian's situation was equivalent to falling from heaven to hell. His body was suspended in the air. His left hand, which had turned into a sharp claw, rubbed against the hard metal, producing a series of ear-piercing sounds. Yang Tian was not the only one who was in trouble. Below him, people were constantly screaming as they fell. The stone turned into a piece of metal, which was extremely smooth. This change was not only a problem for Yang Tian, but for other cultivators as well. Moreover, the impact on others was greater than Yang Tian's. Yang Tian still had his sharp claws, which could leave marks on the hard metal piece. Others could only use their fingers to climb, which was at least 10 times more difficult than before. Or perhaps it was impossible to climb any higher. It was already good enough to stay where they were. Is the virtual world system trying to eliminate everyone? How can they climb if they turn into metal? Yeah, this seems like a last-minute change. That's too stingy. Isn't it just a reward event? Why make it so difficult? If it's like this in the future, what's the point of playing in this virtual world? I want to quit now. Does anyone feel that this virtual world system is getting more and more overbearing? Yeah, it's already so annoying in the real world, and it's the same in this world. What's the point? Everyone goodbye. The spectating cultivators discussed among themselves. Many of them left the virtual world in disappointment. Many of the cultivators on the metal pillars also gave up. This was too much of a scam. Yuxing frowned and quietly watched the situation in the virtual world. In just a few minutes, thousands of people had left the virtual world. Players who entered this virtual world were at least star-grade powerhouses in the real world. They had come to this virtual battle world just to have a good time. If the virtual world was too overbearing and made people feel oppressed, why would they stay here to seek abuse? Sir, seeing a large number of cultivators leave the system, the administrative program hesitated and asked, "Isn't it better to change it back? Let's treat it as a test in the process of breaking through." Yuxing raised his hand and said indifferently, "I already expected this outcome. Even if they all leave, they will still log in later. My virtual world is unique in the entire universe." Yuxing spoke very confidently, and this was indeed the case. What happened next was also beneficial to Yang Tian. Yuxing didn't deliberately target him. 1.5 hours later, Yang Tian finally reached the top of the pillar-shaped building. At the top was a smooth platform that was tens of thousands of square meters. Standing at the edge and looking down, one couldn't see the situation on the ground. Yang Tian stood on this platform and enjoyed the wind for 1.5 hours. When it was time for the second stage, his support device used an excited voice to inform Yang Tian. Due to this event, everyone else had been eliminated, and he had become the undisputed champion. He had also received the reward for being the champion. Send the Beast Cores to the Universe Bank branch on planet Kytra. Any bank will do. I will collect them when I have time. Yang Tian didn't feel excited at all. His voice was very calm. When he transformed, Yang Tian had already noticed that the system seemed to be a little chaotic because of him. What Yang Tian didn't know was that Yuxing had deliberately caused this. Since he had received the reward, Yang Tian was ready to leave the system. As for the problems in the virtual world, he couldn't care less about them. Yang Tian, who was about to leave the system, moved his mind and his body began to change. He changed from his transformed form to his normal human appearance. At this time, under the command of the management program, the virtual world began to analyze the data on Yang Tian's body. Yuxing used the entire system's income as a bet because he wanted to know what had happened to Yang Tian's body. He faintly felt that as long as he could figure out what had happened to Yang Tian's body, he would gain a lot of benefits. This was just like when he discovered the program segment. Yuxing trusted his intuition. "Xiaolong, I need you to take me away." When Yang Tian returned to his human form, the support tool floating beside him actually spoke such a sentence. Chapter 367. Sir, after testing, due to Xiaolong's unique power, the main program used a special method to calculate and had no choice but to add the unique data segment you found to his body. Of course, this program segment is a copy of the one you found. It is precisely because this program segment was added to the simulated data of Xiaolong's body that Xiaolong had imperceptibly gained a lot of power. If this program segment is removed, Xiaolong's power will not be able to reflect its uniqueness. If it cannot reflect the uniqueness of Xiaolong's origin power, it will go against Sir's original intention of designing this virtual world. Therefore, the main program did not report this process. After the virtual world's control program finished speaking, Yuxing let out a long sigh. He finally understood a little of the matter. This time, Yuxing's loss to the virtual world was huge. It was estimated that for a long time to come, his income would be sharply reduced. However, the value of the information Yuxing obtained was far greater than what he lost. This was because he finally knew what kind of existence the program segment he obtained was. Yuxing originally thought that the program segment he obtained was created by a mechanical life form. Later on, it was proven that this was not the case. Mechanical life forms were essentially intelligent programs. Their understanding of the energy cultivated by humans was not as good as humans themselves. Then, what kind of existence was this program segment? In the past, Yuxing was only guessing and had no way to prove it. But now he was sure of it. If he wanted to explain it clearly, he would have to talk about the distant past. A long time ago, there was an expert called Talisman Master. Of course, before he became famous, Talisman Master did not have this name. Talisman Master was an extremely ordinary cultivator. At the same time, he was also a rune enthusiast. Being interested in something did not mean that he was talented in it. Talisman Master was a person with no talent in the field of runes. One had to know that runes were difficult to learn because almost no one could remember all the runes, not to mention the energy changes formed when countless runes were combined. However, even those without talent could come up with strange ideas. Talisman Master was unable to remember all the runes and the changes formed when runes were combined. However, he thought of a method. That was to use the runes he knew to write an incorporeal life with intelligence. Then, he let this intelligent program collect rune information for him and study the endless combinations of runes. The essence of this kind of life was actually the same as the essence of digital life. Of course, an invisible life form written by runes would definitely be different from a digital life form. After spending an extremely long time, the Rune Lord finally succeeded. He used a portion of the runes to successfully write a simple, formless life form with elementary intelligence. The Talisman Master had given this formless life form an extremely strong desire to learn, as well as a powerful invading ability. Its hacking method was completely different from the current digital AI program. Digital AI programs were composed of extremely simple numerical codes, such as the 0 and 1 binary codes created by humans on Earth. Of course, the intelligent programs in the universe were not made up of simple binary codes. The intelligent program was composed of simple numerical codes. The transmission method must be advanced electronic devices. It could only invade high-tech equipment. However, this formless rune life form could spread through any material. Air, water, light, cosmic rays, even the human body. The reason why it was so awesome was that the rune itself was a miraculous symbol that reacted to a special energy. The Talisman Master used this rune life form to master all the runes in the universe. Of course, this kind of mastery was not memorized by his own mind, but by the rune life form. When he needed it, he could use it at any time. This was similar to how humans on Earth use computers. It was the same principle. The number of individual runes was extremely large. When combined, they could explain all the phenomena in the universe. The Talisman Master, who possessed the rune life form, became the most knowledgeable person in the universe. However, later on, as the rune life form grew, the Talisman Saint learned more about this universe. Under the Talisman Saint's command, the rune life form self-destructed. The Talisman Saint also disappeared from the universe after saying the 3 words, "Do not disobey," and never appeared again. The self-destruction of the rune life form was actually not complete. It turned into countless program segments made up of runes and scattered throughout the universe. Many people did not know about this ancient legend. Of course, Yuxing was an exception. What happened to Yang Tian in this virtual world allowed Yuxing to confirm that the program segment he found was the program segment left behind after the rune life form's self-destruction. It would not be an exaggeration to say that the rune life form was a divine weapon. This program segment was equivalent to a fragment of a divine weapon. More importantly, this divine weapon fragment actually showed signs of resurrection. Quick, filter his consciousness. Yuxing suddenly opened his eyes wide when he thought of this problem and loudly ordered the management program. 10 seconds ago, when Yang Tian heard the auxiliary device say that it wanted him to take it away, he could not help but be stunned. Too many strange things had happened in this virtual world system this time. First, he was able to transform. Then, he was the only one who passed the second stage. Next, the auxiliary device actually said something like this to him. "There is no time. Let's leave." The auxiliary device said again when it saw that Yang Tian did not reply. After saying this, Yang Tian felt his consciousness become hazy. It was as if he was in the process of waking up from sleep. At this time, Yuxing also gave a command to filter Yang Tian's consciousness. Of course, Yuxing did not know that the intelligent main program had already begun to escape. This was just a precautionary measure he came up with on a whim. This strange intelligent main program left through Yang Tian's consciousness and entered Yang Tian's brain in the real world. After it left, a filtering program blocked Yang Tian's consciousness and began to filter it. Soon, Yang Tian's consciousness disappeared from the virtual world. Sir, no abnormalities were found. In the real world, when Yang Tian woke up, the management program reported to Yuxing, "What about the main program?" Yuxing nodded and asked. The management program said, "No problems were found." Yuxing smiled, temporarily shut down the virtual world system and extract that program segment. "Yes, sir." "Sir," the management program replied. What Yuxing did not know was that the strange program segment he had now was only a copy. It lacked a lot of rune information. Chapter 368. After waking up from the virtual cabin, Yang Tian let the assistance device report the time. Only then did he know that he had stayed in the Star Royal virtual combat world for an entire day. The flow of time in the virtual world was completely different from the flow of time in the real world. "Thank you." Just as he came out of the virtual cabin, Yang Tian suddenly heard this sentence in his mind. The voice of this sentence was almost exactly the same as the voice behind the assistance device in the virtual game world. Yang Tian couldn't help but be shocked. What's going on? Just as Yang Tian was trying to figure out the situation, the voice in his mind sounded again. "Please don't worry. I'm just a program temporarily residing in your brain." "A program? You are?" Yang Tian had already vaguely guessed. The program that entered Yang Tian's brain seemed to be able to read Yang Tian's thoughts and said, "You guessed right, I'm a program in the Star Royal Virtual Combat World's main program." Yang Tian frowned and asked, "You're just a program. Why did you run into my brain?" "Ji." At this moment, the little blue dragon's cry sounded. Immediately, a green shadow flashed, and the little blue dragon appeared on Yang Tian's shoulder. The little blue dragon had been patrolling around the house all day. After hearing Yang Tian's voice, it immediately flew back. The little blue dragon asked Yang Tian what happened. Yang Tian had nothing to hide from the little blue dragon. He pointed at his head and smiled bitterly. "A program ran into my brain." The little blue dragon didn't understand and looked at Yang Tian worriedly. "I can read the thoughts in your brain, so you don't have to say it." After Yang Tian explained to the little blue dragon, the voice in his mind sounded again. "There are so many cultivators in the Star Royal virtual combat world. Why don't you run into their brains?" Yang Tian asked in his mind. The strange program replied, "I'm not interested in them because there's a special energy in your body, which is the energy you call origin force. It's also because of you that I can completely awaken, so I should be bound to you." "No." As soon as the strange program finished speaking, Yang Tian couldn't help but shout, "You better get out of my body." Although it was just an intelligent program, Yang Tian didn't want it to be stored in his body, even if this program didn't have any effect on his body. I'm afraid there's no other way." The strange program spoke. "The reason I was able to reside in your brain was because I used the Star Royal Virtual World's main program's immense computing power to alter my own coding combination. Because of that, I can only temporarily reside in your brain after the strange Star Royal Virtual Combat World's brain origin force, Yang Tian's mind." It turned out that the other party was already prepared. Although the strange program said that, Yang Tian still said, "Then I'll log into the Star Royal Virtual Combat World again. You can find someone else." The strange program didn't refuse and said, "If you can log into the Star Royal Virtual Combat World, I'll agree." Yang Tian couldn't wait for the strange program to leave his body and lie down in the virtual cabin. "Sorry, the Star Royal Virtual Combat World is temporarily closed due to a system bug. Please pay attention to the news on the Universe Network." As soon as Yang Tian's consciousness entered the Star Royal Virtual Combat World's login page, such a notification appeared. F***CK. Yang Tian opened his eyes and stood up from the virtual cabin, shouting. To Yang Tian, this was something he couldn't accept. No one wanted another life to be stored in their brain. Although the other party was just an intelligent program. What should I do? Yang Tian thought for a while, went to the living room, and opened the Academy's system with a support device. He prepared to contact Zhuliang City. In Yang Tian's impression, Zhuliang City seemed to be very professional in this aspect. This was the only thought that appeared in Yang Tian's mind before it was detected by the strange program in his brain. It said to Yang Tian, "What you're doing is useless. Unless I'm willing, no one can get rid of me from your brain. Actually, you don't have to worry. My relationship with you now is like a grasshopper on a rope. If you don't have a good time, I won't have a good time either. If you die, I'll disappear with you." After the strange program said that, Yang Tian sighed and gave up helplessly. He had lost his cool just now. Under the little blue dragon's concerned gaze, Yang Tian was silent for a while before asking, "Then when will you leave my brain? You can read my thoughts, so you should understand that this is something very difficult for me to accept." The strange program said, "Of course I understand. Actually, there's no need for you to find it difficult to accept. My existence is just like any cell in your body. I don't have any emotional reactions, and I'm not a real-life form. I'm not interested in your privacy. You can also think of it from another angle. I can be a tool for you." After the strange program finished speaking, Yang Tian was silent again. He thought, if I think of it from another angle, it does make sense Yang Tian was not worried about his privacy. He was worried about the effects this strange program would have on his body. The strange program naturally understood Yang Tian's concern. After Yang Tian calmed down, it said, "You can rest assured. I don't need to take over your body. I can't do it. The cells in your body can only be controlled by your consciousness. Think about it. There are so many strong people at the end of their lives. Why don't they use other people's bodies to continue living? That's because the consciousness and the body coexist." The strange program was very detailed. It explained to Yang Tian how it existed in Yang Tian's brain. This was actually a kind of parasitism. It could not change the structure of Yang Tian's cells. Moreover, without Yang Tian's permission, it could not control Yang Tian's body. After the strange program finished speaking, Yang Tian thought for a moment. It seemed to make sense. Let's not talk about the distant past. Even the one-eyed strong person he met in the small world could not escape the fate of death. If there was really such a thing as possession, then all the humans in this universe would probably be old monsters. Then what good will it do for you to exist in my brain? After thinking through this problem, Yang Tian asked with a smile. He couldn't just let this strange program stay in his body for nothing, right? The strange program said, "I have a strong memory and computing ability. When you need it and allow it, I can help you control your body to perform precise movements. I can also help you control high-tech equipment that you can't control." The strange program simply explained its abilities to Yang Tian. These abilities were not used much, but they could be of great use at critical times. "Then can you hack into the Universe Bank system and fill my account with an inexhaustible amount of money?" Yang Tian joked after strange program finished speaking. "If you don't care about the consequences, I can help you do it. However, I can't guarantee that they won't track you down." The strange program replied straightforwardly. "This forget it." Yang Tian shook his head. Chapter 369. Stealing was something that Yang Tian would never do. There was no sense of accomplishment at all. Yang Tian thought for a moment and asked, "Apart from this, do you have any other abilities? For example, in terms of cultivation, can you help me?" For Yang Tian, becoming stronger was his ultimate goal, because as long as he became stronger, other things like money and power could be easily obtained. The matter between him and Qin Fei would no longer be a problem. "I can help you in terms of runes," the strange program replied. Runes? Hearing these two words, Yang Tian was very surprised, because many of the powerful things he had seen were related to runes. For example, the teleportation array disk that could teleport people and items regardless of spatial distance, and his red saber. They all used runes. "What are runes?" Yang Tian asked again. Since runes were so powerful, if he could learn them, it would be a great thing. The strange program replied, "Runes are a form of energy. The same type of energy in different environments will have different runes to express it. Therefore, no one can remember all of the runes. My main body is constructed from runes." The strange program gave Yang Tian a simple introduction of runes. When Yang Tian heard this, he felt a headache coming. If he had to spend a long time to learn runes, forget it. Just as Yang Tian was about to give up, the strange program said, "My main body exists for runes. If you can collect all of the runes like me and complete the structure, you can obtain the path of runes through me and become the number one person in the universe." The strange program's explanation made Yang Tian very excited. He could not help but ask, "Then how can I collect all of the runes?" The strange program replied, "Sorry, I don't know." Humph! Yang Tian sighed helplessly. Beautiful things were really hard to come by. The next day, Yang Tian, who had a good sleep, woke up at dawn. For him, there were a lot of things to do in the next 2 days, because in a few days, he would have to leave the academy and go to the bubble space. After getting out of bed and putting on his clothes, Yang Tian went to the living room. The auxiliary device controlled the housework robot to bring breakfast for Yang Tian and the little blue dragon. Breakfast was juice and roasted beast meat. Although it was made by the programmed robot, the taste was not bad. The man and the dragon ate until they were full. After eating, Yang Tian let the auxiliary device open the video sent by Qin Fei. In the video, Qin Fei was wearing a white dress. She smiled and waved at Yang Tian, looking very happy. "Yang Tian, are you okay?" "Yang Tian, everything is fine for me in the Divine Hall, but I am not free and cannot leave the Divine Hall as I wish. Even contact with the outside world, I have to be sneaky. I really miss you." Yang Tian would never get tired of watching this video 100 times. After watching the video, Yang Tian let the auxiliary device open the anonymous universe bank account he registered. What made Yang Tian happy was that although the Royal Star Virtual Battle World was temporarily closed, the Beast Core was still sent over. With a tool like the teleportation array disk, the distance in the universe was no longer far. The Taichu family was offering a reward for Yang Tian's head. Although Yang Tian was not afraid, he did not want to go out and cause trouble at this time. Therefore, he let the Universe Bank deliver the goods to his door. Of course, this kind of service needed to be paid. Since he had obtained a star-level Warlord Beast Core, Yang Tian naturally did not care about this small amount of money. About 2 hours later, Yang Tian received a notice from the Academy Guard that the goods had been delivered. Yang Tian went out and retrieved the Beast Core. After returning, Yang Tian opened the box containing the Beast Core. The Beast Core inside was also silver white, but it was smaller than the one Qin Fei gave to Yang Tian. It seemed that there were still some differences between Beast Cores of the same level. It was probably because the Beast Cores used to make this Beast Core came from different beasts. On the surface of this Beast Core, there was also a transparent protective layer. Seeing the silver-white Beast Core in Yang Tian's hand, the little blue dragon did not look as greedy as before. After taking a closer look at the Beast Core, Yang Tian put it back into the box and put it into his storage bracelet. Yang Tian had just put the Beast Core into his storage bracelet when the auxiliary device notified Yang Tian, "Master, a woman is here to visit." As the auxiliary device spoke, it opened the surveillance video outside. It turned out that Soli had arrived. Yang Tian immediately let the auxiliary device open the door. Soli, who was wearing a loose white robe, went up to the second floor. After seeing Yang Tian, she said directly, "I'm about to advance. I need your help." "No problem." Yang Tian smiled. Seeing Yang Tian nod, Soli turned and went downstairs. In an empty room on the first floor, Soli took out a blue beast core from her storage bracelet. Looking at the blue beast core in her hand, Soli's eyes were slightly excited. "I obtained this Star Warrior level beast core during an adventure. It's just right for me to use it now." Yang Tian finally knew why Soli was so confident about her advancement. It turned out that she had already prepared the energy she would absorb during her advancement. After Soli finished speaking, Yang Tian smiled and said, "Don't worry. I promise you won't be disturbed." Soli said, "That's not all. If anything happens, I'll need your help. You'll understand when the time comes." It sounded a little complicated. Yang Tian was puzzled. "In that case, why don't you ask Professor Shenwu for help?" Soli didn't answer Yang Tian's question. She sat cross-legged on the ground and crushed the protective shell of the blue beast core. The beast core wasn't big, only a little bigger than a thumb. After crushing the transparent shell, Soli directly swallowed it. Yang Tian and the little blue dragon stood aside and watched quietly. Yang Tian would have some experience if something like advancement happened to him, but if it happened to someone else, Yang Tian wasn't confident. At this time, although Yang Tian looked calm, he was still a little nervous. In other words, Soli had placed her life in his hands. This was a sign of extreme trust. It seemed that since becoming a warrior, all the women who came into contact with Yang Tian trusted him very much. The advancement process of human cultivators wouldn't cause as much of a commotion as the little blue dragon, but it would still emit strong energy fluctuations. These energy fluctuations were very chaotic, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. One would know what was going on as soon as they sensed it. However, in the academy, such things would happen every once in a while. The intermediate and advanced students weren't surprised by this, and with the academy's rules, no one ran outside Yang Tian's room to watch the show. Feeling the energy in Soli's body becoming more and more chaotic, Yang Tian couldn't help but frown and watch the changes in Soli's expression. Chapter 370. The process of a cultivator's advancement was sometimes very long. Yang Tian nervously paced back and forth. After waiting for about an hour, he finally sat down on the ground. The little blue dragon didn't care about Soli's matters and had already flown out to play. During this hour, Soli's expression was very calm. It seemed that nothing unexpected had happened. As for the chaotic energy fluctuations emitted from her body, this was a normal phenomenon. "Master, a woman is visiting." Suddenly, the auxiliary device bell notified Yang Tian. The room on the first floor was also equipped with an advanced projection device. After bell notified Yang Tian, it showed the situation outside. As Yang Tian expected, Chu Yinguing had indeed come. Yang Tian got up and walked to the door, personally opening it. After Yang Tian opened the door, Chu Yinguing looked at Yang Tian with a concerned expression and asked, "Yang Tian, what happened?" Chu Yinguing also felt the energy fluctuations emitted from the room. She thought that something had happened to Yang Tian. In the end, it wasn't Yang Tian. "I'm fine," Yang Tian said with a smile. While speaking, Chu Yinguing glanced behind Yang Tian and saw a woman sitting cross-legged on the floor with her eyes closed. "She's advancing?" Chu Yinguing asked softly. She guessed what had happened. Yang Tian nodded and let Chu Yinguing enter the room. In order not to disturb Soli, the two didn't speak. The room was very quiet. Time ticked by slowly. After about an hour, Soli's body finally started to change. First, the aura on her body suddenly weakened, but in less than a minute, a strong energy fluctuation erupted from her body again. This kind of energy fluctuation was something only Star Realm experts could have. Not only did her aura change, but Soli's skin also suddenly turned dark red, and her body temperature rose at an extremely fast speed. Immediately after, the blood vessels under his skin protruded. They were dark red in color and formed a sharp contrast with his red skin. It looked as if his body was covered with tree roots. Soli also frowned. She looked uncomfortable and her body trembled slightly. Will she be all right? Chu Yin Gaing asked worriedly after seeing the changes in Soli's body. Although he didn't know much about other people's cultivation methods, Yang Tian's perception of energy was very sensitive. He knew that Soli wasn't in danger yet, which was a normal reaction. He told Chu Yin Gaing, "Don't worry, she's still fine." Chu Yin Gaing nodded, finally feeling relieved. Although Chu Yin Gaing and Soli didn't know each other, she knew that Soli was Yang Tian's friend, and they trusted each other. The change in Soli lasted for about half an hour. During this time, Yang Tian was on high alert, ready to help Soli at any time. If the energy in a cultivator's body became chaotic and out of control, they would need to rely on external forces to suppress it. Yang Tian was much stronger than Soli. This was also why Soli asked for Yang Tian's help. Another reason was whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, a chaotic airflow appeared around Soli's body. This airflow was caused by a special magnetic field created by the energy in Soli's body. As the airflow rose, Soli's loose robe fluttered loudly. Soli cultivated the aura power, which was a cultivation method that changed the body's cells from the outside to the inside. At this moment, it was a critical moment. The rising body temperature, faster blood flow, and higher blood pressure were the beginning of the transformation of the body cells by the aura power. When human cultivators advanced, they would also cause some changes to the surrounding environment. It was just that the area affected was relatively small. This room was very sturdy, and Yang Tian didn't decorate it with vases or other decorations. Otherwise, the room would probably be in a mess. The airflow spun around Soli faster and faster. Soon, some of the items in the room were rustling. Soli's long blue hair was also blown close to her face by the airflow. Her expression couldn't be seen. Chu Yin Gaing immediately took out her staff from her storage bracelet. She waved it casually in the air. Powerful mind power radiated from Chu Yin Gaing, controlling the airflow within a certain range. Whoosh! As the airflow grew stronger, Soli's robe was suddenly blown open by the violent airflow, revealing her beautiful upper body. Seeing this, Yang Tian finally understood why Soli didn't let the Xinwu Academy's professors protect her. Perhaps she had expected something like this to happen. During the process of advancement, the body had to be minimized from the outside world. It was impossible to wear armor and tight clothes. If one wore a loose robe, some situations were unavoidable. Yang Tian only glanced at it and then turned around. This was too embarrassing. If Chu Yin Gaing wasn't here, he could take a few more glances. Soli usually wraps herself up tightly. I didn't expect her to be so well endowed. What am I thinking? After turning around, Yang Tian still had the image in his mind. As a man, it was normal for him to think like this. When the image in his mind became a little blurry, for some reason, it suddenly became clear. Moreover, it was many times clearer than before. The image that was left in his mind was actually a little abstract, but the image that became clear was extremely clear. It was as if he was looking at it closely in reality. What was going on? Yang Tian was very surprised. As soon as this question appeared in his mind, the strange program's voice sounded. This is because of my help. When you humans don't deliberately remember things, you'll quickly forget after a glance. I can make up for this flaw. Yang Tian finally understood. In the future, please don't do such things without my permission, okay? Yang Tian said to the strange program in his mind. Understood. The strange program replied straightforwardly. The airflow that appeared on Soli's body soon weakened and finally disappeared. The energy waves emitted from her body calmed down as well. If nothing unexpected happened, Soli would soon complete her advancement. Her body would also become stronger and become a new life form. It's almost over, Yang Tian thought as he looked at the situation outside the window. More than an hour passed while Yang Tian, Chu Yin Gaing, and Chu Yin waited. During this process, Soli's chi was stable for a while, but it eventually became weaker and weaker. In the end, the range of her chi was even weaker than that of a planetary state Star Lord. No! Yang Tian suddenly realized that something was wrong. He immediately turned around and walked to Soli. Soli was clenching her teeth, and her body was trembling even more than before. Yang Tian wasn't in the mood to appreciate Soli's beautiful body. He immediately took out the Star Warrior level Beast Core he had just obtained from his storage bracelet. Ha! Yang Tian crushed the Beast Core in half. Then, he pinched Soli's chin and stuffed half of the Beast Core into her mouth. Yang Tian did this because he sensed that Soli was lacking energy. The Beast Core that Soli had taken before had probably lost most of its energy due to its age. It wasn't enough to support Soli's advancement. With enough energy replenishment, Soli's chi began to recover. Eventually, the energy waves emitted from her body gave off a feeling of vitality. After making sure that Soli was fine, Yang Tian looked at the half-beast core in his hand. Just as he was thinking about what to do, the little blue dragon quickly flew over and snatched it away, eating it like a snack. This guy really knows how to grab the opportunity to eat. Just as Yang Tian was sighing, Soli suddenly opened her eyes. She had finally completed her advancement. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.